5, 4, 3, 2.
What is up, friends? I'm gonna adjust my music volume because I'm realizing that it is a little loud. And, you know, I realized I made another mistake in my setup. So just give me one moment. And I will have the last thing that I need ready to go to do this. Sorry about that. Alright. Here we go. There we go. That was gonna stink. Hi, Trig! Hello! Alright, welcome everybody to my Undertale character analysis. I still don't have everything set up properly, so... Alright, there we go. There we go. It's ready. It's going. It's good. All right. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so incredibly excited to be here. Thank you so much to the Edge Case Collective for hosting me today. I am extremely excited to talk to all of you about the characters in Undertale, about what motivates them, about why they made their particular choices, about the issues that they're gonna face. I want to I want to give you a warning that this is going to be extremely spoilery. If you have not played Undertale, if you don't want the plot spoiled, I'm gonna spoil the hecky out of it for you, like, right now. So if you don't want that experience, then feel free to bail. However, I would also like to give a shout out to Encrypted Duck. You can see their name right there on the video. They so generously allowed me to use the footage of their pacifist playthrough. So please enjoy all of this lovely, lovely footage, courtesy of Encrypted Duck, whose URL you can see right there. You can find them on YouTube. Big thanks. I also want to thank my friend Bato, who put together all of the footage for me. Without Bato, you would not be watching this lovely, lovely footage. So big thanks to them. So yeah, spoilers, spoiler time, spoiler alert. Oh my gosh. All right, so I've kind of advertised this as a deep dive, but it's actually more of a shallow dive because I'm going to be talking about so many characters. So if you ever want to nerd out, it's more of like a summary. If you ever want to nerd out like really hard with me, you know where to find me on Twitter probably. If you don't, my name is SporadicErratic. Hello everyone. I'm kind of nervous. All right. So we're gonna start out with a poll, since I did say that I was gonna spoil it. Have you played Undertale? If I could ask my wonderful tech person to get that poll up in the chat. If you have played Undertale, that should be popping up pretty soon. In the meantime, well, let me get back over to my notes. I'm gonna have to explain a few things about how the game, about the main plot of the game, in order for the rest of these explanations to make sense. Again, what I'm going to be doing is talking about why the characters acted in the way they acted. So, if you are not, let's see, if you are not familiar with the game, in this game you play as a human who falls into the underground where there are a bunch of monsters. And right now we're watching kind of like the main story. Oh good, there's the poll. I needed to get in there and vote in it myself. Very important. All right. Wow, shout outs to the person who has not played Undertale, who is here and is about to have the game ripped wide open for them. Kudos to you. All right, so you play as this human and you fall into the underground and there are all of these monsters. So what happened long ago, kind of the overarching story of this game, is that there was a war between monsters and humans, and the monsters lost. The humans were very afraid of the monsters because the monsters have this ability to absorb a human soul. If they do absorb the human soul, they become this massively powerful, like terrifying creature. And so, a big difference between humans and monsters is that humans have the ability, their soul endures after death. It's not the same for monsters. Their soul disappears. In fact, the only monsters that have the power to have their soul persist after death are boss monsters. The soul will only persist for a few moments and then you'll see it be gone forever. So the humans were very afraid of the monsters, and there was a big war, and the humans won, and 7 mages sealed all of the monsters underground behind a barrier that they could not break on their own. In fact, in order to break it, they need the power of 7 human souls. Well, so a while ago, a child, fell into the underground. They were found by the royal family, and they were adopted by the royal family. They became like a sibling to the royal family's child, and all of the monsters were really hopeful, right? They were hoping that there was going to be a future in which they could get out of the underground that was going to be facilitated by this young human who was now a child of the royal family. Well, the child, I'm just gonna say their name. Their name is Chara. You may have heard it around, right? Their name is Chara. They weren't the greatest person, even as like a kid, right? Every human is different. So they weren't the greatest person. They convinced their sibling, Asriel, that they should break the barrier on their own. And the way that they should do this is that they should eat these flowers. There are these flowers that are growing in the underground that at some point they fed to their father by mistake. Like they put the flowers into like a recipe instead of flour. It was very cute and kitty, except they poisoned the crap out of their dad. So I want to get the next poll going while I'm doing this summary. So the next poll, I scrolled in the wrong thing. This is going great. The next poll is, how many times have you played Undertale? And we have 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 20, over 20, and over 50, because there are so many different endings. So Char convinces their sibling to feed them the poisonous flowers. They say they're going to eat the flowers on purpose. That's right. I was going to give a warning. So I'm going to talk about some things that might be disturbing to some viewers. We're going to talk about motivations of the characters, and that's going to include things like social anxiety, depression, suicidal depression. If that kind of thing makes you uncomfortable, then please feel free to leave. It's all right. I won't be offended. Keep yourself safe. So back to the main story. So yes, Chara is like, feed me a bunch of these flowers and then my soul will manifest, and then you can absorb it, saying to Asriel, their sibling, you can absorb it and then you can go through the barrier, because it only takes 1 human soul to pass through the barrier, but it takes a human and a monster soul combined to pass through the barrier. So you can go above ground, gather the rest of the human souls, it will break the barrier, and free all of the monsters. That's the plan. Asriel's not really sure if he's on board with this plan, but Chara is a really pushy sibling and gives him all kinds of shit. And so he's like, all right. And so they do it. And as Chara lays dying, of course, Asriel has second thoughts. The parents, Asgore and Toriel, who are other characters I will talk about, of course, are incredibly distraught, and their child dies. Chara passes away. Asriel absorbs the soul. However, Asriel is racked with grief. Asriel was, like, really not prepared. Like, Asriel went along with this, but didn't really... maybe he just didn't wrap his mind around it. They're kids, right? They're kids. So Asriel is now absorbs the human soul, becomes incredibly powerful. It turns out that Chara is not gone, that soul has a will, that the body is being controlled by both of them. So it takes a long time for you to figure this out in the game. You get bits and pieces, right? Alright, and we got the how many times you played Undertale poll. I'm gonna get in there myself and vote. Alright, cool beans. So Chara is the one who picks up their own body, right? In their shared body with Asriel now. They pick up their own body. They go up, like, the thing that Chara had asked for on their deathbed, they're like, I would like to see the flowers in my village before I die. Well, obviously they couldn't do that because they couldn't pass through the barrier. So super-powered Asriel, Dreamer, half-Chara, picks up their own body, goes to the human village. The humans see this big freaky monster carrying this dead kid and go completely apeshit and start attacking. Asriel is the one who doesn't fight back, right? Because the plan was to fight back. They go and they lay Chara's body in the flower bed and are attacked like a whole lot, and Asriel goes against the plan, actually picks up the body and leaves again, just runs home, back through the barrier. They manage to make it into the throne room where there are lots and lots and lots of flowers. One thing that I didn't explain is monster physiology, and when monsters die, there are two stages. The first one is falling down, which is really fascinating, right? It's like, it's like it is in like a bunch of RPGs, right? When they don't want to talk about somebody dying, they instead say they've fallen down, like shoutouts to Pokemon and stuff like that. They've fallen down, but they're not quite dead yet. And then when they're dead, they dust. They just turn into dust. And that kind of fits with one of the main concepts of the game, which is that humans are actually like exponentially more powerful than monsters. Humans are much, much, much more powerful than monsters. Humans have a much more physical body, and monsters are made of magic, and so that's why they dust. And there's kind of like a joke, like monsters are made of magic, and humans are made of water, for the most part, which is true. But, so, Asriel gets back to the throne room with Chara and dusts. And, it is just this incredibly tragic event. Everybody in the Underground is racked with grief, and they've lost, the royal family has lost 2 children in one night. They lost kind of like what their hope for the future was. They lost everything. I'll get into how that affects Toriel, their mother, and Asgore, their father, pretty soon. So one of the things that then happens is they, of course, still want to break the barrier. And Asgore petitions the royal scientist to come up with a way to break the barrier without actually having to use human souls. And the royal scientist is Alphys. We'll talk about Alphys later. So one of the things that she does is that we've got the which routes have you completed. Oh, we've got like an all 3. That's interesting. Okay, all right. Cool beans. I like how you did that vote, my friend. Thank you for running that poll. So Alphys needs to find a vessel. What they do is they experiment with this thing called determination, which if you know anything about Undertale, you have heard about determination, right? It is, again, one of those emotions. It's really, really powerful. It's easy for humans to wield, and it's hard for monsters. So Alphys does these experiments where she injects monsters with determination. It does not turn out well. I will talk about that more later, but she finds out that there were non-binary, that monster bodies can't really handle extreme concentrations of determination. So she needs to find another way to try to complete the king's request to somehow come up with a way to break the barrier. So she needs a vessel. She doesn't have a human vessel. Obviously, there's no humans around, right? She's trying to create an artificial human soul. She can't use a monster, so she wants to use something in between. So what she uses is a flower. One of the golden flowers where Azrael's dust scattered, and that is where we are gonna start. We are gonna start by talking about Flowey. Oh, I love this poll. Did you find it difficult to complete the genocide route? So Flowey is the first character that we're going to talk about. But before I start talking about Flowey, I just want to read a little something that I wrote about the game in general. I hope you will all bear with me because I want to talk about why this game matters so much to me, why I love it so much that I wanted to talk about the characters for an extremely long time. I'm just gonna check on the polls and see what else is gonna go down. Yeah, we're doing great. We're doing great with the polls. So, all right, okay. At its core, Undertale is a game designed to elicit an emotional response from the player, and that's amazing. There are plenty of games with poignant writing designed to make the player feel things, but Undertale went several steps beyond that. Not only did Toby fill it with complex characters facing a variety of very relatable real-life issues, such as depression, anxiety, suicidal depression, trauma, loss, as well as ADHD, autistic coding, social anxiety, but designed the game to actually teach players who might not have ever felt it before to feel compassion. In order to feel compassion, you have to genuinely care. And the best way to get people to genuinely care for the little pixel people was to make them wildly relatable to the player, especially the kind of player who might not have ever been able to talk openly to anyone about what they're going through. I've read countless accounts, especially from kids who were deeply moved by the game. It helped them weather rough times. It helped them learn something about themselves. It showed them what kindness looks like when they hadn't experienced that for themselves in their lives. It reached out to them and said, I see you. You are not alone. And it accomplished this through the power of the writing in the game, the unique combination of world-building, depth of characters, and self-aware fourth wall breaking that makes the characters feel larger than life, feel real, feel like by the end of the game that they really are your friends. A lot of the games came afterwards that tried to harness that same feeling, but they didn't quite understand what Undertale had done, how exactly it had made that powerful connection with the players that had resulted in a living, breathing, active fandom 7 whole years after this little indie game was released. I say 7 years, we're coming up on the 7th anniversary in October. And the fandom is huge, it's alive, it's active, it's amazing. I see it trending on Twitter. It's, yeah. So, we're not here to talk about those games. You know, we're here to talk about the characters and what it is about them that made them so relatable or not relatable to people, because some of those characters are going through things some of the players have never experienced, and they have a hard time understanding some of the choices or actions the characters take, even getting angry at the characters for those choices or actions. That's part of the game too, because sometimes compassion means being kind to someone, even in the face of their anger, or when they've done something hurtful, or when you can't understand why they're doing what they're doing. The pacifist route is longer and much more difficult than any neutral or genocide route. You have to dodge literally everything the game can throw at you and probably fail a lot trying. But the rewards are huge as you get to help these characters move forward in their lives from where they've been stuck for so long, and you get to move forward with them too. So, those are my thoughts about the game. That's why I felt pacifist is supposed to be harder than genocide. Absolutely. I would say from a mechanical perspective, there is the lore of the game is that the intent of the monsters affects how strong they are. So I would say some of the boss fights are definitely more difficult as you face these pumped up versions of these monsters who are giving it their absolute all to protect those they love. But it does, you know, open up the most difficult fight in the game, which is Sans. It's the only way that you can fight Sans. The only way that you can get him to fight you is to go the genocide route. Otherwise, he won't step up. But yeah, no, it's a whole lot easier to just stab the monsters than to go through every fight and have to dodge everything over and over and over again. You don't have to worry about that so much. Plus, if you never gain love, right? If you never gain levels, if you simply dodge everything, you never gain HP. You never gain attack. You know, you can change your weapons if you want, but you're not attacking anybody, so those numbers don't matter. I guess it's up to your personal interpretation. If you find Pacifist or Genocide to be more difficult, obviously that Sans fight is the most difficult fight, and Undyne's fight becomes more difficult, but I would argue that the Pacifist route, it takes a lot more time, it takes a lot more energy, and you're probably gonna die a lot more in the Pacifist route other than on the Sans fight. Alright, okay, how many Undertale endings have you seen? Alright, excellent vote. Okay, alright, so we are about ready. As soon as this poll is done, I am gonna start talking about Flowey. I hope y'all are enjoying it so far, and so the poll is gonna be about if you like Flowey or not. I do want to find out what everybody thinks before I jump right in, because Flowey, we're going to start with the very first character that you meet in the game. Again, this is going to rip the game really wide open because the first character is also the last character. Spoilers! All right. So, yeah, let's get that poll going pretty quickly. Okay, so most of you have seen between 2 and 10 endings. That is one of the big things about Undertale, is that your choices matter. It's really interesting because you will run into characters who tell you that your choices don't necessarily matter, you're not in control or anything like that. But your choices matter a ton in the game. There are so many different things that can happen depending on what you do. All right, so do you like Flowey? Please vote in this poll. I would love to know how y'all feel about Flowey, the little flower that tries to kick your ass at the very beginning of the game. So, Flowey. Flowey's surface drives are power, control, and a desire to cause suffering, right? Flowey, at his core, Flowey is Asriel, resurrected, right? But he comes back, he talks about it, he comes back, and he talks about coming back in the middle of, you know, in the middle of the throne room, not to his own body. Now he is trapped in this flower body. You know, he doesn't know why he's back, but he's back. And he explains everything to Asgore. Cool motive, still murder. So he's back. You know, he explains everything to his dad, who like holds him and stuff. And Flowey feels nothing, right? He talks to you about how he feels nothing, about how he comes back and he wishes that he could care about everybody, but that he doesn't. And that he's in this world, he kind of has the same power. Flowey is the only character in the entire game who also has the power of the reset. Again, the game is really meta and self-aware. Flowey is able to reset the game. Flowey discovers this ability to reset the game. However, Flowey is suffering from extreme grief, right? Flowey is also really scared. Flowey's a kid, right? A little kid. Flowey is a little kid who was given an incredible amount of power, more power than you know, any kid should have to handle, right? They're given an incredible amount of power while in this state of shock and grief because their sibling just died. They come back, they have nobody to comfort them. Nobody recognizes them, they're not in their body, they've been dead for a while. And in fact, there's some dialogue about how when you fight Flowey, because Flowey is the main antagonist, is trying to kill you throughout the game, tries to, you know, fights and tries to kill you at the end of the game, taunts you, you know, takes the power of the reset from you, tells you to call out for help, right? Says, ooh, ask somebody to come, mommy, daddy, help me. Well, when you do the genocide route, you find out that is what, let me make sure I can get, I have the dialogue here. Okay, maybe that's like not it or whatever. Well, they explain that they were. One thing I didn't do was organize the dialogue really well, so just give me 1 second. That's Undyne's dialogue. That's not helpful. All right. So anyway, Flowey will say to you that they came back and they called out. And nobody. Yeah, here it is. I remember when I first woke up here in the garden, I was so scared. I couldn't feel my arms or legs. My entire body had turned into a flower. Mom, Dad, somebody help me, I called out, but nobody came. But nobody came is a huge... Now, Toby loves a repeating theme. He loves to use it in his music, and he loves to use it in the dialogue. If you pay attention in the game, you will notice characters echoing things that other characters have said. There are, like, important things to pay attention to, and one of the big ones is if you do the genocide route, eventually when you go to fight monsters, they will be afraid of you and they won't show up. And so there was supposed to be a fight and it will say, but nobody came. It's the idea in the game is that it's kind of the worst thing possible, being alone, right? And that is the main theme of the game, the main thing that most of the characters are dealing with. For whatever reason, most of the cast have found themselves isolated. For the most part, they're doing it to themselves. They all need someone to kind of bust into their lives and help them out, right? The way things are, they can't break the barrier on their own without a human soul. They can't really do it without you. They need a little bit of help. So Flowey's main motivators: extreme grief and loss and a lack of ability to process it, extreme loneliness, and possibly guilt. So he says, the king found me crying in the garden. I explained what happened to him. He held me with tears in his eyes, saying that everything was going to be all right. He was so emotional, but for some reason I didn't feel anything at all. I soon realized I didn't feel anything about anyone. My compassion had disappeared. And believe me, it's not like I wasn't trying. I wasted weeks on that stupid king, vainly hoping I would feel something. But it became too much for me. I ran away from home. Inside I found her, and he's referring to Toriel. I thought of all people she could make me feel whole again. She failed. I realized those two were useless. I became despondent. I just wanted to love someone. I just wanted to care about someone. You might not believe this, but I decided it wasn't worth living anymore. Not in a world without love. Not in a world without you. So I decided to follow in your footsteps. Now, when Flowey's talking to you, he thinks that you're his sibling back from the dead. By the way, they all kind of confuse you for this other human throughout the game. I decided to follow in your footsteps. I would erase myself from existence. And you know what? I succeeded, but as I left this mortal coil, I started to feel apprehensive. If you don't have a soul, what happens to you? Something primal started to burn inside me. I thought, I don't want to die. Then I woke up like it was all a bad dream, back in the garden, back at my save point. Interested, I had tried to experiment. I decided to experiment, and again, I brought myself to the edge of death. At any point, I could let this world continue on without me, but as long as I was determined to live, I could go back. So he talks about how at first he used his powers for good and became friends with everybody and solved all of their problems, and then that became predictable, and he became curious about what would happen if he killed them. Now, that's the whole theme of the game, right? You, as the player, can decide if you're going to be kind and spare everybody, or if you're going to kill some people, if you're going to kill randomly. It all started because I was curious. I don't like this, I told myself. I'm just doing this because I have to know what happens. What an excuse. You, of all people, must know how liberating it is to act this way. I've done everything I've seen all of the lines of dialogue. So when you as a human drop into the underground, you actually change Flowey's ability. You take the power of the reset from Flowey. But anyway, we're gonna go back to Flowey resurrecting and not being able to feel anything. This is actually classic. One of the grief responses. It's a very basic grief response. One of the things about our culture that I hate is that they don't really educate people about how grief works, how great grief in response to loss works, the kinds of things. And I speak about this from personal experience, having lost a few people a few years ago. You know, hospice gives you this little booklet that has this listing of things that says it's okay to feel this way and this way and this way, because our stories do not include a true description of grief. In fact, a lot of the time they will gloss over the grief in order to like move on with the story, and real people can't gloss over grief in their life. Getting over grief takes a while. It affects people tremendously. It affects people so tremendously that many cultures have monsters based on people who are unable to overcome grief, because a lot of like kind of traditional folklore monsters are a warning. And so if you follow my Twitter, you'll see me talking about the Banshee a lot, because the Banshee is a mother who has lost a child and was never ever able to recover from it. It's a thing that happens. Okay, so one of the things that happens when people experience extreme grief from loss is they will find themselves not being able to feel anything. And then they will feel guilt and shame because they're not crying over the loss that they've experienced. What's wrong with me? They'll say, well, you're experiencing grief the way that humans do. And some people shut down and some people disconnect. And especially kids. It's interesting, giving this talk, doing the practice, I have had people come to me and tell me their own experiences of either shutting down or of observing children in particular closing themselves off when they were hurt. So here is Flowey / Asriel, a young child whose sibling just died, completely isolated from everyone who they have ever loved, from everyone who has ever loved them. They feel that they can't connect with them. They don't know how grief works, and they decide that they don't have a soul and they're unable to feel things. They do all of this stuff going through the motions. They try to bring the emotions back on their own, but their grief and their trauma is such that it simply doesn't happen. They decide that they must not care, that they must be, you know, for lack of a better term, a monster, and they start killing indiscriminately. However, there's all kinds of proof that Flowey actually does feel things, and it is scattered throughout the game. One of the things is that he follows you everywhere to watch you. He cares a lot. It's kind of a little bit of an Easter egg, but if you turn around, he's always watching you. He's always following you. He's really, really interested in what's going on with you. Of course, there is him mistaking you for his dead sibling and talking to you with a lot of excitement, taunting you with the same things that he said when he was lost and alone. So when you get into that final boss fight, when you're fighting Photoshop Flowey in the neutral ending, because that's what happens in the neutral ending, Flowey manages to get a hold of all of the souls and turns into this unbelievably overpowered creature and attacks you. And one of the things he does, apart from taking back the power of the reset and like forcing you to live and die and live again, like over and over and over again. Yeah, like you're not allowed to die. And like the idea of living and suffering is a big one for Flowey. In fact, in the very beginning of the game, should you play it just once and then reset it, in the very beginning of the game, right, the very first thing that Flowey does is he says that he's going to teach you how to play the game. And he says that monsters communicate with little friendliness pellets. And he says you should catch as many as you can. And of course, they're bullets, and they're going to hurt you. If you dodge all of them over and over and over again, Flowey will get really pissed off at you and will say, you know what's going on here, don't you? You just wanted to see me suffer. Flowey's world is suffering. He is living in a terrible world of isolation and grief by himself. But again, he does a bunch of stuff to show that he actually cares. In the alarm clock dialogue, the winter clock dialogue, which this is something that you can go on to the Undertale website and read for free. They were going to release as a bonus to people who pre-ordered the game or backed the game on Kickstarter. They were going to release a clock with a bunch of it was like an app. And they scrapped that, and so for one of the anniversaries, Toby released all of the dialogue from that. And so one of the stories that you hear is that Flowey went into the ruins, and when Toriel was at her lowest, which we'll talk about it more, but Toriel's at her lowest, grieving for the loss of her children, and she's not eating, and she's not sleeping in her bed, he brings her a cup of water. You know, like, how do you do that if you don't care? There's another piece of evidence where at one point you fall into a dump, and it's really interesting. You're talking on the phone with Undyne. You make friends with Undyne and Papyrus, and Undyne has some dialogue there, and she's like, oh, yeah, flowers just started growing there at one point. We don't know why. It's like they have a mind of their own. Why would flowers grow specifically where you fall into the underground to cushion your fall? Why would flowers grow in the dump to cushion your fall? And then, of course, another emotion that we get to see Flowey have is at the end of the genocide run, where he has been super psyched the entire time, right, for your murderous rampage, and he realizes that maybe he's included. Like, it takes him the whole time to figure out that he's included in this murderous rampage, that he's not going to make it out. He becomes absolutely terrified. You get to see his face fall and change, and he starts shaking, and he talks about it. He's like, why can't I stop shaking? I believe that, yeah, what's this what is this feeling? Why am I shaking? What are you doing? Back off. I've changed my mind about all this. This isn't a good idea anymore. You should go back. This place is fine. Stop making that creepy face. This isn't funny. You got a sick sense of humor. All right, so, and then he goes and tries to warn Asgore that you're coming. He's very, very scared. So I would argue that Flowey is just a young child who is given way too much power in deep grief. Man, I never changed the video. Like, I should have. This is going great. All right. Hold on. Here we go. It's been the intro video this whole time. Flowey. I've only been talking about Flowey for like 30 minutes with this. Good times. Flowey is a child in deep, deep grief who has no one to talk to about it, who doesn't understand what a grief response is, who has decided that he doesn't have a soul, who has decided that he's unable to feel anything, despite the fact that he is. And so he's decided to lash out, and the way that he hurts you is the way that he's been hurt, right? He tries to make you experience, but the truth is that he doesn't want you, he's so lonely. He doesn't want you to leave, right? And all of this becomes clear once you go the true pacifist route. And he absorbs all of the souls in the underground. Flowey has been living in denial this entire time, right? He thinks he's not able to feel anything. He thinks nobody feels anything about him, or he's just not able to care. And then suddenly, he's full of the feelings of all of these, of everyone in the underground. Not only is he forced to feel things whether he wants to or not, right? Because he has every single soul in the entire underground in him, but he is obviously able to feel how much, he's obviously able to feel how much his parents, oh my gosh, it's not over, my friend. I'm getting some messages. This is just Flowey, my dear. Oh my gosh. All right. So he can't deny the way that his parents feel for him. He's feeling it. They are inside of him, right? So whatever he was thinking about not being able to feel love, about not being loved, that is just destroyed when he absorbs all of those, every soul minus Napstablook. Yeah, right. Napstablook was like, what happened? Napstablook was at home. Oh, I have one other bit of evidence. I love it. I'm sorry. So the one other bit of evidence that that Flowey has, he likes to talk about Papyrus, right? Papyrus, everybody loves Papyrus, including Flowey, right? Flowey becomes really, really good friends with Papyrus. Flowey talks about how Papyrus is his favorite one to mess with, right? But he eventually got bored of him too. Sure. But then you get some dialogue from Papyrus. You talk to him in Waterfall. Flowers, do any of them talk? Say hi for me. Flowers are our best friends. If you're in the Echo Flower Corridor, Echo Flowers. There's only one talking flower for me. All right, so if Flowey really, really doesn't care about anybody or anything, then why did he befriend Papyrus again in this timeline? He didn't have to. You know, he went back and did it again. So yeah, Flowey. So Flowey, the difference between Flowey and Azrael's feelings are jump-started when he takes all his souls into him, both by having to feel what everyone else is feeling and not being able to deny that they still care about him very much. The human souls, when you're fighting Photoshop Flowey, the human souls actually reject him, right? They fight against him. When you're fighting as Azrael Dreamer, they're in there along with the souls of everybody else in the underground. The human souls reject helping Photoshop Flowey because he has not come to terms with his grief and is still just lashing out. And Flowey's kind of, cathartic moment, obviously, when he turns back into Azrael Dreamer. When he becomes fully Azrael again. He always was. He just didn't have his body. And he was just in incredibly, incredibly deep grief. And so his lines as Azrael, we're gonna segue into Azrael here, right? Where his surface drives are power and control, and then his main motivators are loneliness, grief, loss, and trauma. And can I get that poll up? Do you like Azrael? Do I even have it on there? Oh well. You like Azrael? Yes, no. Let's get it on there. This particular video has stuff mixed in there too. Gosh, I can't believe I forgot to change the video. Anyway. Azrael doesn't want the player to leave because he's slightly confused them with Kara. He's incredibly lonely and begs the player not to leave during the boss fight. He also wants to force everyone else to feel what he was feeling, hence him taking away the Lost Soul's ability to perceive each other, trapping them alone with their own thoughts. It's the worst hell that he can think of. It's the one he lives in. All right? So, Azrael, right? I didn't talk about who loves and who hates Flowey here. So who tends to love him is anyone who loves like all of the kids and like sees him as one of the kids. I see a lot of people in the fandom drawing Frisk, which is the default name of the character you're playing, drawing Frisk, Chara, and Chris from Deltarune a lot of the time, but Frisk, Chara, and Flowey together a lot of the time. They like to imagine them all together. So who hates him? A lot of the folks who have to fight him. He's such a big bitch. Do you like Asriel? Yeah, more people like Asriel, right? Than Flowey. He gets his ability to feel emotions back. So, I haven't really seen any hate for Asriel, really. I just want to kind of get in one of the most powerful things in the game is that Asriel kind of refuses to be saved. He ends up in a prison of his own making, right? One of the big themes in this game is kind of like what the characters learn from each other, and especially what Asriel has picked up from his parents. And you'll see this theme with the, you know, like there's kind of like a more benign version of it when you read that like glass of water thing that comes up, where Toriel will talk about it and Asgore will talk about it, and Toriel will say, oh, somebody brought me this glass of water and it's filled to the brim the way that somebody used to do. She won't really come clean about who used to do that. Then there's some dialogue where she and Asgore interact, and he fills a glass of water to the brim or something. He's like, it's just more efficient that way. And so Toriel's like, it is, isn't it? Which it's not. You just spill your water. And then when you find out that Asriel brought the water to Toriel with the glass was filled to the brim the way that somebody used to do, right? So he has absorbed this from his parents. So one of the themes that kind of comes with the royal family is martyrdom. They whether by choice or by duty, they feel that they have to perform a certain function. And so we're going to segue into Toriel here pretty quickly. But one of the things that Toriel says to you when you leave, if you go to find her, or she won't come with you and she won't talk to you anymore, she says somebody has to take care of these flowers. And at the very, very end of the game, when Asriel is talking to you as himself, when he has kind of finally made his way out of grief, because that's what you were doing, is you were helping him out of the grief to come back to himself. He warns you against people with his mentality. He really addresses the player. It's one of the most amazing things in the game. It's more that fourth wall breaking where he talks to the player because he's the last interaction that you have, right? And so he imparts some of the lessons that Toby really wanted you to come away with from the game, which is that the kill or be killed mentality is not good. The mentality that Flowey has adopted, right? It's one that is maybe it was Chara, but like, you know, you don't know if it was Asgore who taught Chara who taught Asgore, or whatever. The point is that they have absorbed this thing from each other. So that's one of those like arguable things, right? How do you know who specifically a long time ago filled the glass to the brim when Asgore is the one who says it's just more efficient that way? You can't really extrapolate that one. You just sort of have to guess. Oh man, I got a little bit lost. Just give me a second here. I looked at the chat. All right, so we're talking about, oh yeah, so Asriel is warning people against Floweys, right, that are out there, that a better way to live your life is to try not to kill and try not to be killed. And it's interesting because the game is about teaching you about compassion, but he still says you can't always fix everything by just being nice. This is a really interesting kind of little, there are all these little throwaway lines in the game where like you hear it really fast and then the game is over. And it's like, did you hear that? That the whole game is about teaching you to try to be nice no matter what, but then Asriel warns you that sometimes not even that works, right? However, one of his last lines is, you know, he believes that he's going to return to the flower body. He believes he's not going to have a soul when he does, right? And so he stands there and he says someone has to take care of these flowers. Just like his mom. Now, did he observe her saying that some previous time? Did he observe his father saying that? Because his father is always in the throne room watering flowers and just sort of like waiting around. Did he observe his mother simply saying that to you that one time? And he decides that it's what he says, that he's gonna stay behind? Who knows? Who knows? Well, that is Flowey and Asriel both. I hope y'all have enjoyed that. We are going to jump right into Toriel. So sorry about the lack of the Flowey video. We've got to jump into the Toriel video. Really quick. How y'all doing? Jack, do you like Toriel? Can we get that one up there? There she is. There's Toriel. All right. Do you like Toriel? So, what I have observed, who loves her? Just about everyone. And who hates her? People who love Asgore. It's really interesting to observe in the fandom. People tend to like pick a side, which I find fascinating because I see Toriel and Asgore as two sides of a coin. They're two extremes. They both go to a different extreme when their children pass away. And so people who think Asgore been done wrong tend to dislike Toriel. Toriel's surface drives. Loving, nurturing, caretaking, helicopter mom extraordinaire. She holds your hand, right? She holds your hand. You can see her. She holds your hand through all the puzzles. She's afraid to let you do anything on your own, really. As you enter the thing, she's very focused on keeping you safe. She's overlabeled everything. She walks you through puzzles where you can't possibly get hurt. And this is, of course, a result of her actual real main motivators, which are loss, grief, trauma, and fear. Wow, she is so afraid, and that is very deep in her dialogue. You're neutral on her, honestly? Huh? Fascinating. Fascinating. All right. So, Toriel, when her children died, right? This huge, terrible, traumatizing thing happened. It galvanized and polarized the royal family, and Toriel's response was to, I kind of can't talk about Toriel without talking about Asgore, so I will simply talk about it now. In their grief, they had two extreme responses. They went in opposite directions, literally. Asgore became angry, and in his grief, he declared war upon all of the humans, and he swore that he would get all the human souls needed to break the barrier. And Toriel couldn't handle the death of another child. Now, the death of another human, because one of her children was human. And so absolutely disgusted with Asgore. She can't handle, like, her child just died and her husband has just declared that he's gonna kill more humans, human children, possibly. So she is, she can't accept that. That's like the hard line that Asgore crosses. And so she leaves him. She goes to the ruins. She becomes the self-proclaimed, you know, kind of ruler of the ruins. She's definitely stronger than anybody else in there. She's a flippin' queen, right? So she makes it her job to guard the spot where Chara originally fell down. Also, interesting fact, she takes Chara's body with her and buries it in that spot, and all of those flowers are growing there. Did she plant the flowers? Did the flowers simply spring up from Chara's body? We don't know. Either way, there's a bed of flowers over Chara's grave, and kind of a little extra meaning there in Toriel refusing to leave the ruins and saying someone has to take care of these flowers. She's never ever gotten over the death of her child, and her grief is really intense as well. As I spoke of before, there is that information about Flowey coming to see her in the ruins, finding her on the ground outside of her house. She's not in bed. She's simply on the ground. She hasn't been eating. She hasn't been drinking. This is another classic. I say classic. You know, this is another major grief response. And on a personal note, this is my grief response. The sadder I am, the more impossible it is for me to eat. And so I saw that immediately in Toriel. Oh, she's in deep, deep grief, right? So she goes to an extreme. She's going to protect every child ever. As you enter the ruins, you know, she asks you to do ridiculous things like just stand here in this room for a really, 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 really long time. She just expects you to wait for her to come back. She's always checking up on you and is like, oh, you didn't go anywhere, did you? Her lost soul dialogue. I like to talk about the lost soul dialogue because in the end of the neutral route, when, oh, not the neutral route, in the end of the true pacifist route, when Azrael has absorbed all of the souls, again, his major punishment for them is to trap them inside their own heads, right? And so the words that they say to you as they are lost souls are their like biggest fears, their innermost thoughts, the things that are driving them. And for Toriel, gosh, so much of her dialogue, when you go to fight her, when you check her, it says knows what's best for you, right? God, she's a helicopter mom extreme. Her lost soul dialogue includes, "This is for your own good. No one will leave again." Right? And that's what she does when you get down there. She immediately says, "You're gonna stay here. You're gonna live here with me." She tries to fight you to keep you from leaving. Everything is about saving the lives of these children. And then, you know, if once you beat her or you're on your way out, right? She says, "Pathetic, is it not? I cannot save even a single child. I understand you would just be unhappy trapped down here. The ruins are very small once you get used to them. It would not be right for you to grow up in a place like this. My expectations, my loneliness, my fear." Again, loneliness, fear, right? She admits that she's alone to you and that she's scared. "For you, my child, I'll put them aside. If you truly wish to leave the ruins, I will not stop you. However, when you leave, please do not come back. I hope you understand." Right? She has to completely let you go. Even though you might still be okay, she can't leave this sort of like martyrdom position that she's given herself where she has to stay in the ruins. She can't accept, she doesn't want to watch you die to Asgore, right? She can't handle that. And I was gonna say something else that she can't handle, but I spaced it. All right, so Toriel sticks to this extreme. If you get the neutral ending, so there are many, many neutral endings where you do not free the monsters from the underground. Some of the more considered the more positive neutral endings are the ones where Toriel becomes the queen. Now, I did have that poll earlier about how many endings you have seen, and there are many, many, many different endings depending on who you have left alive and who you have killed, and that's part of what Flowey talks about, right? About seeing every eventuality, and kind of, despite the fact that the game is designed for you to do that, also Flowey really wants to make you think about it. He's like, okay, so you're torturing all of these characters just so you can see everything. Think about yourself and why you're doing that. But so the ones that are considered kind of the better endings are the Queen Toriel endings. Toriel's still alive and everybody's feeling pretty good, and Toriel comes in and takes Asgore's place because the game is designed in such a way you do need a monster soul to make it through the barrier. That is how it works. And so it's hard to save Asgore. You can only save him in True Pacifist. So the Queen Toriel endings, she makes a decree, not a really great decree, that every human that falls down will be treated as a friend. They will be treated with kindness, which the monsters are pretty on board with. If you went through the underground and you were like mostly nice, if you had to do the neutral ending, some of the better neutral endings, if you've killed almost no one, the monsters are on board with this. However, if you have done some of the more, you know, murderous neutral endings, but you've left Toriel alive, she doesn't get to, the monsters get really upset with her. And she will either be deposed by Undyne. Undyne is totally ready to do what needs to be done, or she will leave of her own accord. If all of the monsters are like really, really angry at her, what she won't do is say, oh, well, never mind, maybe we shouldn't treat all humans as friends. So, Toriel is unable to let go. She's living in the same sort of grief as Azrael, as Flowey, and as Asgore. We'll talk about Asgore in like just a moment. Her lost soul dialogue when you set her free is, your fate is up to you now. So that's the way that you end up helping Toriel, is you end up helping her let you choose your own path, stopping, you know, trying to control everything, thinking that she's gonna make you do everything. She's unable to see humans as anything other than like innocents. Even if you go through in like the most murderous kind of genocide-y like start, she will call you innocent several times and good, and she keeps talking about how good and innocent you are up until the very moment that you kill her, where that's the only, like right before she dies, she'll be like, oh, I was actually, by keeping you here, I was protecting everybody else. But then she's dead. So her epiphany comes too late. Her epiphany comes too late. That's right. Well, we have to talk about a lot of different characters. So I definitely, you know, I could talk a lot more about all of them if I was going to talk about them individually. So that said, Asgore, the other side of the coin, right? Let's dive into Asgore. Do you like Asgore? I would love to see the poll go up. Do you like Asgore? Also, it's been an hour. I'm gonna drink some tea. Everybody should hydrate. Good. It's good to do. Did anybody fall asleep? Raise your hand if you fell asleep. Alright. Alright, I have some great notes here. Who loves Asgore? Bar furries. No, for who loves Asgore? You know, a lot of people have some good feels for Asgore. Who hates Asgore? Toriel lovers, right? People who are siding with Toriel, who are just like, oh, Asgore was so stupid when he did that stuff, and Tori's right, and Asgore, what an asshole. Because she talks to him about what an asshole he is at the end, and we'll get into that. Still here, ride or die. Tea, a beverage from the hit series Undertale. Alright, so Asgore's surface drives are having extremely big dad energy. He is super loving and like a big goofball. And then underneath his main actual motivators, duty, grief, and loss. So Asgore is a big goof who reacts powerfully in grief and becomes trapped in a prison of his own making. With no true desire to kill and struggling from the loss of his family, he becomes lost in his own head, trying to deny the present and regain the past. Asgore, gosh. Asgore's really going through it. Both of them are super complicated. Yeah, due to how they handled that grief. So, where Toriel went to the extreme of, I will not I will not harm a single human, and I can't accept somebody who would harm a single human, and that includes you, Asgore, you jerk ass, I'm leaving. Asgore, in his grief, declares war upon the humans, declares that he is going to get those souls, and gives hope to the underground, right? But he's actually not a super violent guy. He's really sweet. As you travel throughout the underground, all of the monsters talk to you about their experiences with Asgore. They have really funny stories about him. He's called King Fuzzy Buns. And they'll call him that to his face, and he doesn't get mad. Like, that's what a cream puff he is. He's such a sweetheart, right? You also find it, they talk about how Toriel was really the brains behind the throne, and I feel like Asgore feels like this guy I've known. I've known this guy where they're like big, they're goofy, they're really well-meaning, they have like a single brain cell. They can't get anything done on their own, and they don't really want to. They're like lower motivated. They would like to have somebody to tell them what to do. They're a little lost without it. They think they're making a good decision, but a lot of the time, if they're left to their own devices, they'll make some really, really bad decisions. That's what Asgore does, but he loves everyone. He loves everybody in the underground. He takes his job as the king very, very seriously. He gave everybody hope, and he is not going to throw that away from them, which means that he has to do something he absolutely does not want to do. Goes against his nature. You find it when you go to talk to him. He says, I wish we didn't have to do this. You probably, just saw that dialogue where he's just like, are you ready? I don't really want, he's miserable, but he feels that he is duty bound to everybody in the underground. He is the only one who is giving them the hope of breaking the barrier. However, there's that thing that Toriel takes him to task for in the end when they do meet each other. And she's like, you miserable son of a bitch. You could have taken a single soul, gone through the barrier, gotten the rest of the human souls, broken it. Instead, you just sat around waiting for kids to fall down here and kill them and making everybody wait. She's so mad at him. And he's like, you're right, I am a miserable creature. And he is. He's lost. He is absolutely lost without his family. He is, again, deep, deep suffering and grief. And he's so lost in his own head that he actually gets confused about it when he starts talking to you with his dialogue. Let me get into it here. Maybe someday in the future I'll give this talk again, and I'll have all of my dialogue really nicely organized. So anyway, in a fit of anger, I declared war. My wife became disgusted with my actions. Truthfully, I do not want power. I do not want to hurt everyone. I just wanted everyone to have hope. I cannot take this any longer. I just want to see my wife. I just want to see my child. Please, young one, this war has gone on long enough. You have the power. Take my soul and leave this cursed place. And then when you spare him, right? He says, after everything I've done to hurt you, you'd rather stay down here and suffer. Again, that theme of suffering, right? Flowey, you just want to make me suffer. Asgore sees being underground as suffering. They all see it as suffering. Frankly, being trapped in the underground isn't great, but like, wow. You would rather stay down here and suffer than live happily on the surface. Human, I promise you, for as long as you remain here, my wife and I will take care of you as best we can. We can sit in the living room telling stories, eating butterscotch pie. We could be like a family. And then he at least he figures it out. He's like, no, that's just a fantasy, isn't it? When I look at you, I'm reminded of a human that fell here long ago. And he has some more like dialogue that says, you are our future. Like, he doesn't want to hold that responsibility in his hands. He is thrust into the position of extreme responsibility that he does not want. And so he half-asses it. He has said a thing that he doesn't want to follow through on, but he is, at his core, a good person who wants to help people. It makes him have to do this terrible thing. One thing that is, like, really, really fascinating is the mechanic in the game of intent and how it affects how hard monsters hit you, how powerful they are, And when you check all of the monsters, you will see all of their HP and their attack, and everybody you fight. The monsters, yeah, the future of humans as monsters is a raw responsibility to put on a pair of kids. It is, right? But that's one of Asgore's, that's kind of one of Asgore's, like, not so great aspects, is he doesn't want to step up, not really, you know? So hence his half-assed approach. Out of all of the monsters that you fight, right? Even Undyne's stats are pretty low. Despite the fact that, you know, they'll kick your ass with their patterns and stuff like that. Asgore's stats are through the roof because he killed a bunch of kids, you know, or like whoever the other humans who came back. Everybody assumes that they're children. I would say from Toriel's dialogue where she's like, "I cannot save even a single child." Everybody assumes that they were other kids who got lost in the mountains. We don't really have any kind of information about if they were adults or if they were children. But anyway, yeah, Asgore is the one of the three who doesn't have the exact dialogue, but he's always the one taking care of the flowers, so it's one of those somebody has to take care of these flowers sort of things. So, yeah. Asgore's lost soul dialogue, forgive me for this, and this is my duty. Right? He hates doing what he does. He really shuts down. You don't see his eyes here anymore. He refuses to look at you. When you try to talk to him, he just sort of nods and stuff. He has to shut down who he is for the sake of, like, everybody else. But he is super, super ready to give you his soul in the end. He's, like, hurting so bad. He's like, look, you can do it instead of me. Thank God. Here, little human child. Take my adult monster soul. And his lost soul dialogue, once he's set free, is, once again, you are our future. Right? He just wants to pass off that responsibility. He just wants to, you know, he just wants to stand around and look pretty while Toriel makes the hard decisions. But he doesn't have that choice. He doesn't have that choice. So, Asgore, poor Asgore, we don't get to know him very well. He has, I think, the least amount of dialogue of any of the main characters. We really don't get to know him super well. But I mean, we do get to find out he just has that massive dad energy. Even when you get to, like, the ending, he doesn't know what anime is. He likes to say "gee willikers," and he doesn't mind that everybody calls him King Fuzzy Buns. All right. My cat has decided that now, right, meow, is the time that she should definitely let me know that I should be petting her instead of talking about Undertale. Well, too bad. Too bad. All right. We're going to move on to a not very, right, meow. I'm being meowed up. We're going to move on to a not very controversial character. One of my favorites. All right. We're going to move on. I'll be ready for the poll here. That's right. It's Papyrus. I could do Sans next, but I don't know. I kind of want to do Papyrus. There are so many characters here that are really, really intertwined that it's hard to talk about one of them without talking about the other one, because they are all very, very connected. They're connected in some ways and isolated in others. So it's hard to, like, just yeah boy. All right, I would love to see that poll up there. Do you like Papyrus? Here are my notes. Who loves him? Flipping everyone. Who hates him? Is it even possible? I made very, very important notes here. I love that all these notifs are just, like, exploding. I hope y'all are hearing my notifs explode as I'm talking through Discord. All right. So, Papyrus. Oh, Papyrus. All right. Can we get that poll? Are we gonna get that poll? I might need to poke somebody for a poll. Do you like Papyrus? Option 1, yes. Option 2, hell yes. Excellent. Excellent. You know, a person who is not me would probably use Discord, like, on Discord or whatever, but, man, I can't, like, mute these notifs either. F me. Alright, alright. There it is. There's the Do You Like Papyrus poll. Alright. The options are yes and hell yes. if you dislike Papyrus, please please put it in the chat, and also also, I don't know, have people in the chat. Nobody dogpile on anybody if they say that they don't like Papyrus in the chat. All right. So Papyrus's surface drives are, would you smooch a ghost? Papyrus's surface drives are capturing a human, popularity puzzles, and caring for his brother. His main motivators, kindness, compassion, and a desire for close friends. I'm gonna lose my mind. People on my Discord and stuff. I'm gonna have to figure out how to like mute notice or something. All right. Oh my gosh. I just like clicked out of my stuff because I can't handle it. All right. Okay. All right. All right. So, Papyrus, what a flippin' sweetheart. So on the surface, he wants to capture a human more than anything else. He wants to capture a human, right? The reason that he wants to capture a human is that he believes by doing so, like he's trying really, really hard to join the Royal Guard. He thinks if he joins the Royal Guard, he will gain popularity. It's like this order of operations, right? He thinks if he joins the Royal Guard, he will get everything that he has ever desired, which is popularity. He wants everybody to love him. He idolizes Metaton, who is the idol, right? Who supposedly everybody loves, but then there's a lot of jokes later about how there's like, they have like 9 viewers or 6 viewers or 7 viewers. Somebody clicked just yes instead of, you can go into do not disturb mode for Discord. Oh my god. Okay, hold on. This is advanced shit here. Hold on. Oh, right, desktop notification. Oh my god, I'm always on mobile. Thank you so much, Helicord Bubble Tea. I'm always on mobile. I'm like always on mobile. So when I disable notifications, it doesn't do shit. So I'm used to like not, yeah, I didn't put it in stream mode, but I did put it on do not disturb. All right, thanks for helping Grandma. Thanks for helping Grandma with Discord. Back to Papyrus. Let's talk about rep, man. Okay, so like not only, god, I gotta get back to my notes here. Not only is Pap just incredibly lovable, he is designed to be massively likable. He is the first big hurdle for players in the G route because he is so incredibly hard to hurt. Kids in particular who lecture analysis grandma. Kids in particular who play the game love Papyrus. I have seen kids say they tried to kill him and failed. Like they couldn't do it, that they noped out, that when they did it, they cried, and most intensely, that when they did it, they threw up. Which is a real life trauma response to real things going wrong in your life. It's a grief response, it's a trauma response, it's a loss response. I myself have had this response while suffering through grief and loss as an adult, and when I was a kid, when I had to deal with like trauma stuff, it's a big kid thing. Because maybe they aren't necessarily able to like articulate how upset they are, their body will do it for them. All right? He's just a little pixel person. He's not real. That's how real he feels, right? He's written so well. Papyrus has more dialogue than anybody else in the game. If you do the phone calls, oh my god, he's hilarious. I love him so much. One of my favorite things about Papyrus is how hard it is to tell if he's like, if he doesn't know what he's talking about or if he's snarky as hell. I would argue, and I would love to hear responses from anybody in the chat, but I have heard Papyrus, I have heard that he is autistic coded, and I have heard some people say it, and I can see it. I can see it in Papyrus. You know, he's extremely enthusiastic. Let me see, I've got some notes about it here. He has encyclopedic knowledge of pasta and puzzles. He can remember very specific details, but he has a hard time. It's amazing. We're on it right now. He has a hard time with a very specific type of puzzle. He has a hard time with the Junior Jumble. He's fixated on like his routine and particular things happening for him, like having a bedtime story, despite the fact that he is older. Yeah, it's interesting. You say he has no clue what he's talking about, but there are times in which he has incredible insight. And so it's very hard to pin down if he is if he doesn't know what he's talking about or if he's being snarky as hell. I challenge you to go back and like go through some of his dialogue. The way that he rips on Undyne is unreal. I mean, they rip on each other like back and forth, but it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. So when I say he has encyclopedic knowledge of like pasta and puzzles, like you joke, but there's dialogue. If you do not save Undyne early, if you don't go do the Undyne date, welcome back Z. If you do not do the Undyne date, you get a lot more dialogue on the phone with just Papyrus, and Papyrus will name a bunch of different types of pasta: linguine, ravioli, rigatoni, lasagna, lumaconi, rotini. I did not even know what the hell rotini was. Yeah, right, hyperfixations. You could also argue for you could go in there with ADHD or with autism. I'm leaning towards autism myself simply because I have heard other people with autism say I relate to Papyrus. I think he's autistic coded. And so if that is, Papyrus could create a pasta rap. Amazing. All right. So Papyrus thinks that he wants popularity, and he thinks the best way to get that is by entering the Royal Guard. One of the big things for Papyrus is him going on a little journey of self-discovery that you get to watch. Excuse me, if you are paying attention, you get to watch it happen in real time in the game, right? One of the reasons he is so loved is because he is so open and honest with the character, right? He's still figuring out what he wants, as evidenced by both his Lost Soil dialogue and his date with you. He thought that he would feel a certain way if he went through the motions with you, but instead he learned something about himself and was honest with you about it, right? So you go on this date, he does his best. He thinks he knows what a date is and how it goes, and how you're supposed to feel, and what your reaction is supposed to be, and he simply observes that he doesn't have that, and then he tells you. He's like, oh, well, I thought dating was gonna make me feel romantic feelings for you, but I don't. So let's be friends. Shout outs to the Aero Ace community. There are definitely people who see Papyrus as Aero Ace, and I would not argue with them. I think that you can definitely interpret him that way. Date interface, my beloved. Egg, my beloved. So one of the other things, I mean, Papyrus kind of figures out what it is that he really wants, like really pretty quickly, right? Because he thinks that everything he wants is about capturing the human. He has dedicated himself to capturing the human. He has, you know, he goes on patrols even though he's not in the Royal Guard. He went and found the captain of the Royal Guard and like camped out in front of her house, desperate to join the Royal Guard. He set up all these puzzles by himself. Obviously, there's a tradition of puzzles, but still, he set up all these puzzles by himself, despite not being in the Royal Guard at all. And then he just throws it all out the window for you. In a heartbeat. You know, he says he so clearly understands himself, but he kind of doesn't, you know? I mean, the thing is that he's ready to just be true to himself, but he doesn't necessarily know what it is that he wants. Right? So, yeah, the puzzle is shaped like him. Yeah. So, he meets you, a human. His entire flippin' purpose in life has been capturing a human, and he just instantly throws it out the window for you. He becomes your friend instead. Right? And I think the part of the game is Papyrus discovering that what he really wants, because he talks about being showered with kisses every day. He's not going to be showered with kisses by a bunch of randos on the internet, right? If he's going to be showered with kisses, it's going to be people in his real life. And so Papyrus, as the game progresses, kind of discovers that like joining the Royal Guard wasn't necessarily you know, gonna bring him what he wanted. Though it is really funny in the end if you do get the true pacifist ending and the Royal Guard gets disbanded. He's like, this is the worst possible ending. You have to go back and fix everything. Alright, so Papyrus is unwavering in his belief in the character to his own detriment. Again, another reason that, like, everybody loves Papyrus. What is going on with my camera right now? Why? Why, camera? Why? Why are you doing this to me? I can't tell if I fixed it because I don't know the front. Oh, let's see. Hey, it looks better. Alright. Alright. He's generous to a fault, and those around him know that. Right? So, Papyrus's lost soul dialogue. I must capture a human, and then everyone will, and then it stops. Even in Papyrus's lost soul dialogue, you get to see how he grew, right? Whereas some of the other characters are still saying their deepest fears, like their deepest motivators. He says, I have to capture a human and then everyone will, and even in his lost, isolated state, he's like, then everyone will, what? You know, like his next dialogue is like 3 dots, right? And then everyone will what? And then, of course, his dialogue as he comes out of it, no, wait, you're my friend. I could never capture you. Yeah. So, Papyrus is, you know, people get upset when you call him like a cinnamon roll or whatever, but the thing is that he's a sweetheart. You know, at his heart, he's a really, 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 really nice person. Who's just he really wants to be your friend. He goes out on a limb for you. You know, you see it happen, right? Like you see him talk endlessly about his dream, and then wow, like right away he's going to Undyne and being like, I didn't capture the human actually, you know, and of course he's ready to be honest with her too, right? Yeah, but like as a true member of the Royal Guard, what would have happened to him? We'll get into it in the Undyne talk. Oh, nice. Like my voice is going out. This is gonna be great. This is gonna be great. Papyrus entirely capable of disrespecting gravity. Absolutely. He is powerful. He's a great fighter. He's really good, and Undyne acknowledges it. So yeah. Pap thinks he wants to be in the Royal Guard, thinks that he wants popularity. I argue that what he really wants is like real friends and close friends. Another kind of argument for like the being on the spectrum is that he talks about how he doesn't have friends. Obviously, Undyne is like a really close friend. He has other people he wants to be friends with, but he hasn't quite like managed to reach out to them yet or whatever. You get the feeling that, I mean, he talks in all caps, right? He gives this impression of like coming on really strong. And he's able to talk to you sort of like endlessly, right? About anything. And so, you know, what's the reason you try to figure out why Papyrus doesn't have any friends? Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know, that he wouldn't have them. Because he's awesome. What a dork. So maybe he came on a little too strong for like the other residents. But that's okay. A bunch of neurodivergent people are playing this game. We love him. All right. All right. It's time for the man himself, the one you've all been waiting for. I wonder if I need to message. Yeah. Okay, hold on. There we go. There we go. Here he comes. That's right. Is that Sans Undertale? Do I need to save this? Did I write like other stuff? Okay. So, All right. Do you like Sans Undertale? Do you like Sans? I'm hoping the poll shows up pretty soon. Do you like Sans Undertale? Okay, the motivations of a Sans. This poll is so good. Freya's, I love you. Can we get some love in the chat for Freya's spirit, please? Freya's really pulling it out with these. Oh no. That's right. You're in my notes. Where are my who loves Sans and who doesn't love Sans? My God, do I not have notes about this? Who loves him? Everyone, horny fans. People who like a challenging fight, his music slaps, and who hates him? Haters who are cranky about anything happy nerds are into. Yeah, there's definitely people who hate Sans for, like, the clout or whatever. They're just like, even Toby was like, enjoy this game before people hate it, like, for standards. Today on Characters Done Bad by the Fandom. We're not even gonna get into that. Alright, Sans, one of the more complex characters in the game. Of course, they're all complex, but one of the more complex characters in the game. He has so much going on. Lots and lots of secrets that's built into him, right? His surface drives, laziness, jokes, and caring an extreme amount for his brother. When you talk to him, God, both of these brothers, you gotta talk about them together because they care so much about each other. When you talk to Papyrus, he professes to be worried about Sans in some ways. And of course, when you talk to Sans, he wants you to think his brother is cool. It's very, very, very important to him that you think his brother is cool. Wow, he gets so mad at you if you are mean to Pap in the beginning. And he thanks you a lot if you're nice, right? Okay, all right. Sans is one of the most brilliant characters in the game, intelligence-wise. He studies quantum physics. He has figured out how to alter space and time, but he still can't quite remember resets. He's just aware of them and aware that he's powerless to stop him. Sans' main motivators, his promise to Toriel, right? You find out that Sans really does want to protect everybody. And Toriel, with her extreme, makes Sans promise that if a human comes through the door, that he is gonna look after them. Which Sans is not, yes, he's such a supportive brother, which Sans is not hype about making this promise. Because as a scientist, you find out Sans, like, knows everybody, basically. Sans knows everything that's going on. As a scientist, he knows that the human is the source of the anomaly. He's aware of alternate timelines, and he's aware, like, he's able to extrapolate what happens. He's able to figure out that there are resets, and that somebody else is in control of them, and that somebody else is you. Incredibly powerful, but unable to alter the timeline himself, unable to change fate, and unable to actually remember what happens during resets. Instead, he will give you, like, a series of tests, little things. He's good at reading emotion, and he's good at hiding his own emotion, right? He never stops smiling. The saying is, if you want to know how Sans is feeling, you have to look to the eyes, because he never drops the grin. So, Sans' main motivators, promise to Toriel, extreme depression, and extreme power and intelligence. I argue that Sans is unbelievably depressed. He is just wildly depressed, because he knows, even if he can't remember it, he knows that he doesn't have any control. He's done everything in his power to break the code, to change the world, to set them free, to save his brother, to save everyone, right? When you fight him, he's able to break the rules of the game. He is so incredibly powerful, but he still can't free everybody from the underground, and he still doesn't have your power, right? Again, really good at reading people and reading emotions. He will talk to you about your facial expression. He will say, you've heard this all before, haven't you? But he's fishing. He's good at putting things out there without being super clear about them, so he has plausible deniability. And a lot of his dialogue is kind of secret and special and clever, like that. Sans never tells anyone anything, never lets the grin drop, has Toby's sense of humor where he actually reveals things, but in a way you can't be sure. The dog food, man. Like, Sans gave Alphys the dog food. Sans knows about the True Lab. Alright? He knows what happened there. Sans is the guy who knows too much and is doing a lot behind the scenes. He's actually working his ass off for Papyrus. He helped him find the box for his booth. He made his costume. He's paying all the bills. You know, Papyrus is always going like, oh my god, Sans, get back to work. Sans has a booth. Sans has a sentry booth in Snowdin. Sans has a sentry booth in Waterfall. Sans has 2 booths in Hotland, and one of them's a hot dog stand. Alright? So he's got another gig on the side. Sans is paying for everything. Right? And Pap isn't even, like, talking about it. He's not talking about it either. He's doing everything he can to support Pap's dream. He probably knows that Papyrus, like, you know, trying to join the Royal Guard and, like, searching for popularity and all of that stuff. He's not a dummy. You know, he knows kind of where things are going. He doesn't care. He puts his all into supporting his brother. And there's an argument there that his laziness could actually be exhaustion because he's able to control space-time. He moves that booth from area to area, right? Because they give you that hint. The snow is on the roof. He just has the one booth, but it doesn't matter. He's moving it through space-time so that he can work multiple jobs at once. He is working multiple jobs. Undyne talks about how it's really impressive how he manages to squeak by with, like, just the bare minimum. Like, it's actually an effort that he makes. That, you know, that he's able to calculate, like, what the bare minimum is and do that. So, yeah. So, I should just not look at the chat. Keep going. Keep going with my ideas, not derail myself. All right. So yeah, Sans is the guy who knows too much, blah, 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 making his costume, paying all the bills so his brother can follow his dreams, working multiple jobs. He also appears on the stage at the MTT Theater. Like, I'm just gonna point out how the game, like, ribs him so hard. Because they're like, there's people, you know, appearing on the thing, like, comedians. It says, like, comedians, performers, Sans. Like, Sans. Poor Sans. All right. One could argue that he's tired for all of these reasons, tired all the time for these reasons. Like everything else Toby writes, I would argue that it's a combination. He's depressed as hell, and he's working his ass off. You know? I feel like a lot of the time we want to point to, like, a single thing. This is gonna get a little meta here into, like, my own thoughts. I feel like we have this society that is very influenced by Christianity, in which we are given this model where that is very black and white. It's good or bad. It's yes or no. And real life isn't like that. There are lots of shades of gray. Everybody wants to know that they're right or wrong. Everybody wants to be able to, like, pin something on somebody and feel good about it, like they made the right decision about that person's character. That's part of the reason that I love all of the characters in this game so much. They're fucking up. They're all making mistakes. They're all making these choices that maybe hurt themselves or hurt others. They're doing their best, though. They're all doing their best with what they've got. They're hurt. They're in, like, really difficult situations. They all are their own people, dealing with their own issues, whether they have been put upon by having, you know, grief or trauma or loss, whether they are neurodivergent in a certain way, whether they have autism, whether they have ADHD. We'll get into that later with Alphys. It's Alphys. I'm not going to say, like, ooh, who is it? It's Alphys. You know? You know, whatever it is they're dealing with, guilt, shame, whatever, they're all doing their best. And so that's why I feel so passionate about talking about what's motivating them and, like, why they're making the choices that they're making. Why it's important to have these characters who don't just magically have all the answers and do everything right all the time. That's why we connect with them. That's why we care. Because we watch them struggle, you know, I don't know, like Chloe with Steven Universe, we watch them struggle or whatever. We watch them be, like, real, whole people where in real life, shit happens. Like, really awful shit happens. And there's no reset, there's no rewind, there's no erase. You just have to keep living or don't. As you know, some of these characters again have suicidality. You know, and it addresses that. It addresses some of the characters in this cute child's video game are so sad that they want to die. The writing in this game is incredible. It's for everyone, you know? But Toby's smart and he's subtle. You have to pay attention to pick up on these things that are motivating these characters. So back to Sans. Proof of his extreme depression is scattered throughout the game. He's always sleeping, though he uses this to dodge responsibility often. He just writes his name on that pile of snow when Papyrus makes a sculpture. He doesn't maintain his puzzles. More powerfully, his room is a terrible mess. He doesn't make the bed. He eats the greasiest burger from Grillby's, and if he's left to his own devices at the end of the game by himself, he refuses to step into a leadership role, even berating himself for being the kind of guy who doesn't step up. He is, in fact, the guy who calls you at the end of the game. He talks to you, you know, no matter what the ending, whatever is going on. And there's a really interesting ending where you have killed everybody else who could possibly step into a leadership role, and Sans will not. And he shit talks himself at that point. He's like, I guess this is what happens when like a guy like me doesn't step up and nobody really has any hope and we're all just waiting around to die. Fuck you. Thanks for nothing. You know, thanks for being whatever. So all right. So yeah, what I said before, if he really knows about timeline stopping and starting, even if he can't remember them, he knows you're capable of killing everyone, including his brother, and he's powerless to stop it. Who the hell wouldn't be depressed by that? The only thing that activates Sans is when he is the last thing standing between you and the king. Yeah, never tells anybody anything. We have these nice dialogue from Papyrus. My brother, of course he has a telescope. Sans loves outer spacey sci-fi stuff. He never told you? Sans never tells anybody anything. And then, of course, the lab dialogue where you find out that Alphys knows Sans. Papyrus, mysterious science house. Sans, the sign outside says lab. Papyrus, lab? Sans, like laboratory? Labrador eat? Does that mean there are dogs inside? Sans, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. He knows! He knows what's going on. He knows everything that's going on. Alright. Alright. Alright, Sans lost soul dialogue. Just give up. I did. Why even try? You'll never see him again. You'll never see him again is an interesting line. This is perhaps a reference to the photo that you find in his lab. It takes some work to find the photo in his lab. In order to get access to Sans labs, you have to do several resets in a pacifist, like neutral pacifist run. You have to go get like multiple passwords from Sans. Sans tests you to see if you have the power of the reset, basically. With this plan that he has in place for if somebody shows up with the ability to reset, that he's gonna have them say like multiple different things. So you come up to him and you talk to him and you reset, and he's like, you've heard this before, haven't you? I have a password for people who are able to you know, time travel, and this is the password. You have to reset again. And he's like, what, is that the password? No, this is the password. And of course he makes you say some doofy ass shit because Sans is great. Sans is like your Dunkel Sans, who is really into you saying that you're a poo-poo butt face. God, I love Sans. Yeah, there's some interesting, yeah, Fanon thing that he has 1 HP because of his stats in the game. It was interesting. I was actually looking into it because I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, what level are the other characters when you go to fight them, right? Because you know your level, right? You know your level as it increases, but I noticed that when you check the characters, you don't actually see their level. You only see their attack and their defense. You don't see their levels. The idea, I mean, like, I was just like, okay, should we check this and see if Sans has never actually killed anybody? Because his stats are 1-1, like, they couldn't be any lower, he'd be dead, right? So with stats like 1-1, the idea is that he's never gained any love, but he absolutely kicks your ass. Yeah. But I mean, even Pap kicks your ass. Pap's stats and Undyne's stats are like pretty much the same. Undyne kicks your ass harder. She's the head of the Royal Guard. Anyway, Sans lost soul dialogue. Just give up, I did, why even try? You'll never see him again. Perhaps a reference to the photo in the lab, which I was talking about how you have to get in there. So you have to go through Sans. I know that you can do resets test before he gives you the key, and you go in there and you find a photo, and it says Sans with a picture of a bunch of people you've never seen. So many theories about what exactly that is. Really interesting fact is if you do the true pacifist run and you go back, you will find a photo of you and Sans and all of your friends there. Like you have given Sans hope. On the back of this photo, it says, "Don't forget." Right? Why would he have to write "Don't forget" on there if he has knowledge of like resets? He knows what's going on. He's trying to leave a note for himself so that he can figure out what's going on, the stuff that he's powerless to stop. One thing that somebody pointed out to me that I think is just amazing. Again, Sans the guy who never shows any emotion. Sans the guy who never lets you know how he's really feeling. Once you get into that lost soul dialogue, out of everybody's dialogue, his dialogue is wibbling. And people say Sans is crying when he's a lost soul. So, you save him. Nah, I'm rooting for you, kid. We're not going to talk about Deltarune. Yum Binary, I am just as hype as you are, but this talk is very specific. Because otherwise, it would go on for 6 hours. Oh, we're just talking about the motivations of the characters at the moment and the things that they are dealing with. Sans and Papyrus function the best together. You see it as they're paired as lost souls, how lost Sans is without Papyrus, how driven they are to support one another, and how at the very end, when they're protecting you against, they make a bone together. This is really interesting. It's something to look for when you play, when like they're both caught up in like all of Flowey's tendrils or whatever. The bone that they make is not quite Sans' bone and not quite Papyrus's bone. They make it together. Now, the very best neutral ending in the game is the King Papyrus ending with Sans supporting him. In my opinion, I do believe the very best neutral ending that you can get in the game is the King Papyrus ending. Despite, you know, of course it's awful, you've killed some people or whatever, but it's the most balanced for the characters in the underground. It works because Sans and Papyrus are working together. Papyrus by himself talks about, you know, how great it is, like, being the king, except, you know, but he's not quite sure. He keeps checking back with, so he's like, oh, I make spaghetti for everybody, and I try to cheer them up, and he admits he's not ready to rule either. The difference between him and Asgore is that he's, like, super open and honest about it. I mean, Asgore is super open and honest where he's like, I don't want to do this, but it's my duty, or whatever. And Papyrus is just like, well, I'm the king! I don't know much about being a king, but here I am, because people need a king, you know? Like, he's a good guy. He's gonna try to do his best. And the way, because, like, if you get multiple endings where multiple people are in charge, right? We already talked about the Queen Toriel ending and how hers is an extreme. The Sans and Papyrus ending is the most balanced because Pap will be like, well, okay, well, if other humans fall down here, what are we doing? What are we doing? And Sans is like judging them on a case-by-case basis. Pap is like, yeah, okay. It's the best. It's the best ending. But it requires both of them. They can't do it alone. They need each other, which is why Sans goes completely apeshit when he has nothing left to lose. Right? That's why you get that. That's why you get that Sans. He's the last line of defense. Standing between you and the king. Because he lets you through. Otherwise, he's still hoping that things are going to turn out okay. It has to be like complete genocide. All right. That's Sans. Moving on. We're going to talk about Undyne. like I'm moving a little faster than I have in the past. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like more focused. All right, let's see. Or maybe I'm missing like really, really important plot points. How y'all doing? I'm doing a check-in like every time. All right, here we go. Undyne. Undyne. Make sure we get our Undyne poll going here. Do you like Undyne? Do you like sushi? Fun fact, like, the Japanese fandom, everybody has like little shortcuts and stuff to talk about which character is which, and the one for Undyne is sushi. She's referred to as sushi. Do you like sushi? All right, who loves her? Come on, Undyne is cool. Lesbians. Undyne is a huge fucking lesbian. It is great. I feel like the biggest indicator that Undyne is gay is not her massive crush on Alphys. I mean, it is, but like, is how much she's into swords. Holy shit, Undyne loves swords. Undyne will not shut up about swords throughout like the entire game. She has this big sword and she's always trying to find swords. She's trying to find swords in the dump. Oh god. I love Undyne. Alright. Who hates her? Who dislikes Undyne? Papyrus lovers who feel that she is holding them back. Holding him back. That is, I have seen some people who really, really, really love Papyrus who really, really, really hate Undyne. I am gonna talk about that a little bit. Alright, so Undyne's surface drives are fighting and looking cool and being loyal and having a big old lesbian crush on Alphys. I can definitely go through and like point out all the evidence throughout the game that she has a fat crush on Alphys, including the fact that she keeps soda in her house, even though she thinks soda is like super gross, and then you find out that the Alphys is the one who's drinking the soda. When you get to the lab, she just like will not shut up about it, right? She's just like, is Alphys okay? Ask questions about Alphys. Alphys surface drives include magic glass. Oh god, you know what? I gotta just like not read the chat. Like like every time. I had the next thing lined up where she gives a crap about Alphys, and now I've like completely forgotten. Obviously she goes on a date with her. I mean, come on. She talks about, you know, she gives you a phone call about becoming friends with like Alphys, but she talks about how the dump is a great place to meet girls. Undyne, so incredibly gay. And a meathead. Undyne really, really wants to be a powerful fighter. Undyne's main motivators: compassion, kindness, and duty. One of the things that's interesting, man, I keep forgetting, I gotta put this in my notes if I like do this talk again or whatever. That like each of the monsters, that each of the humans that fell down had a particular, like emotion that governed them. It's not like they didn't have the rest of the emotions, but like they had one that was like the most powerful emotion for them. And for you, of course, it's determination, right? All the souls are different. Yeah, Butch Icon, Undyne. All the souls are different colors, and from a little simple game that happens in Snowden, where all of the rewards are different colors, they actually tell you what each of the colors stand for. So, it has this other layer of complexity as the monsters that you encounter then have that particular color of magic as the color that they turn your heart in order to try to win the fight. Both Sans and Papyrus turn you blue. You can kind of argue between patience and integrity. You see like the two different like blues. One is patience and one is integrity. And so, who do you think is patience and who do you think is integrity? Of Sans and Pap. What a tough choice, you know? Green is kindness, and that's Undyne's color. I'm just going to talk about the other ones really quick. Orange is bravery, purple is perseverance, yellow is justice. I think I hit them. So Undyne's is kindness, which is funny because she is just like, she's this massive fucking jock, right? She's trying to beat the ever-loving shit out of you. Everybody talks about like what a hard ass she is and how hard she kicks ass and all that kind of stuff. But underneath it all, she cares a lot. She cares really, really, really a lot. She has all kinds of dialogue that shows that she has kind of kindness and compassion and love, not only for the people who are close to her, which, by the way, are Alphys, who she has a crush on, Papyrus, who's her best friend. She thinks Sans is a fucking nerd. And she's not big into Mettaton either. But Asgore. She's buddy-buddy with Asgore, too. Asgore taught her how to fight. She loves Asgore. She is incredibly loyal to Asgore, who she actually attacked when she was a little kid. And instead of him kicking the shit out of her, you know, like she couldn't even hit him. And he's like, do you want to know how to fight me? And then he trained her, and then she became the captain of the Royal Guard. So she is Asgore's right-hand fish. She is the head of the Royal Guard, and she's the one who's been capturing all these other humans and bringing them to him. You think Papyrus would be patience and Sans would be integrity? I think that Sans has a lot of integrity, though, as well. It's so difficult, and Pap is really, really patient, waiting to get in the Royal Guard, right? Like, he sat outside Undyne's place all night. He just keeps doing all of these things, even though he's not officially in it. Let's talk about the thing that Undyne does that makes all the Pap lovers, like, really, really hate her, which is not allow Papyrus into the Royal Guard. A lot of people say that they think that's infantilizing of Papyrus, that he's strong, that he can handle it. I'm gonna piss some people off right here and say, no, he can't. And it's not that he cannot handle fighting, because he can. He's super strong, and he's powerful. He's nice. He's really nice. I'm not gonna, you know, people get mad when you say, like, Papyrus is too nice. Papyrus proves it himself when you show up, and he does not, you know, like, he'll fight you or whatever, but he comes around. He befriends you instead. He does not turn you over to Undyne. What the hell would happen if Papyrus was officially in the Royal Guard and the official employee? Now, you know, Asgore's kind of like a cream puff, so we're not thinking that he would, you know, do anything like really terrible to Papyrus, but it's the difference between having a job and it being official and having it not be official. Where Undyne already knew. Now she's worried that he's gonna get hurt the way that you worry about your friend, but she also knows that he can't do it. He'll make friends with the human instead. Lo and behold, he does it. Is this a bad thing? No. He doesn't actually belong in the Royal Guard. It's not the job for him. You know? Whereas Undyne has to make the hard choices. She has to do some rough shit. She has to bring a bunch of humans to Asgore to murder. I was trying to figure out if, you know, like, if Undyne probably did that too. Her attack is so low. You know, her attack is about the same as, like, the others. Her attack and defense, in at least the pacifist route, like, the intent or whatever, is low enough that I would argue that she has not actually gathered love and that she just simply captured all the humans and brought them to Asgore to kill because Asgore's is so high. Yeah, it would be hard for him to follow orders, and he does. He goes against orders. He does it right away. You know, he meets you, and then he has to go and apologize to Undyne. He's gone against his orders. The one thing, he had one job, capture a human. And then he saw a human, and then he let them go. So, yeah. So I'm gonna go into Undyne's Papyrus dialogue. To be honest, I don't know if I can ever let Papyrus in the Royal Guard. Don't tell him I said that. He's not that he's weak. He's pretty freaking tough. He's too innocent and nice. I mean, look, he was supposed to capture you, and he ended up being friends with you and said I could never send him into battle. Because that's Undyne's responsibility, too. Right? If he's in the Royal Guard, and then she's responsible for giving him orders, right? Sending him possibly to his death. He'd get ripped into little smiling shreds. That's part of why I started teaching him how to cook, so maybe he can do something else with his life. As a good friend, she's not trying to force him to give up his dream. He has to figure that out on his own. You know, she can't, like, make him figure it out. In the meantime, she's gonna be there for him the whole time. Woman doesn't know how to cook to save her fucking life, but she's gonna do what she can. She's doing what she can for him. And that is kind of her big character. She's doing what she can for everybody. She really cares about everybody. She has, okay, so when you attack Monster Kid, there is, in the genocide run, you know, the Monster Kid thinks Undyne is really, really cool, follows you everywhere, whether you're doing the genocide or the pacifist run. Undyne keeps delaying her fight with you to get Monster Kid out of harm's way. She knows what she has to do to you as the human to save everybody, right? It's her duty to protect her friends and the people that she loves. She's gonna get you. But she wants to make sure that Monster Kid doesn't get hurt in any kind of way. She keeps stopping and postponing the fight to carry the kid out of the way. If it is the genocide run, then you, as the murderous character, will attempt to kill Monster Kid, and Undyne steps in the way. She literally protects that kid with her life. Right? Because that is her job. That is what she's all about, protecting the lives of the people she cares about, including Papyrus. That's why she doesn't let him into the Royal Guard. I think, frankly, it's good. Alright, so Undyne is a huge dumb jock. Papyrus zings her constantly and she doesn't pick up on it. He really does, you know, like whereas Undyne, you know, gets him with the noogies and stuff and like beats the shit out of him, he is just constantly ribbing her in those phone calls. I challenge anybody to just watch a video of the phone calls again, because Pap is hilarious, man. He is like really getting her and she doesn't know it all. It's the best. She's massively self-sacrificing and takes her job very seriously, which is extremely evident when you try to fight her, but Monster Kid keeps getting in the way. Blah, 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 blah. All right, we already talked about that. She's so full of determination to protect her loved ones that she refuses to die. The only mini-boss with that ability. She also melts herself at the end trying to stay alive. Undyne in the G route is just absolutely tragic. Because she steps out in front of the Monster Kid and then she's about to die and she's like, no, everybody's counting on me. Again, everything like Monster's ability to hurt you has to do with their intent. So it's like really, really fascinating on the G route when she, not only does she refuse to die through pure determination, which most monsters cannot handle having in their body, right? That level of determination. She reforms herself with really, really high attack. Like, she is ready to just absolutely destroy you, and her stats change. And yeah, she's so full of determination, and we haven't talked about alphas yet, but monster bodies can't handle a lot of determination. What happens if there's too much in them? Your human body can handle it. What happens if there's too much in a monster body? It melts, and you get to watch her melt at the end. She has so much desire to save everybody that it starts destroying her body. Let's go into the notes. Undyne rightfully recognizes Papyrus as a very kind soul. It's extremely likely she had to assist the king. Her first loyalty is to the king and freeing everyone. She doesn't want him to face whatever consequences there are for being a royal guard and refusing to comply with orders. Undyne's main drive is actually really similar to Asgore's, but she's younger and less traumatized. Right? Asgore in a fit of grief declared war upon the humans. Undyne, wow, Undyne has multiple endings where she takes over. She's 100% ready to go to war against the humans. She doesn't have any kids that she's lost or anything like that. There's only one ending where Undyne is still alive, and you've killed like other people, and she is not ready to go to war. And well, I'll just, it's so hard to try to separate them, and that's the one in which Alphys has killed herself. Alphys is gone. And that's the only thing that demotivates Undyne. And Papyrus will say, you know, I tried to motivate her to maybe come up to the surface and like kill you. And she said, what's the point? It won't bring back the people we've lost. So Undyne is a deep, deep well of kindness and compassion, and love, and you can hurt her very badly emotionally, as well as physically, obviously. Let's see, we're talking about who she cares about. She also really cares about Napstablook. She just, like, has all this dialogue where she shows that she cares about, like, other people. She gets some dialogue. Let me see if I put it in here. That's the dump dialogue. It's not what we want. It's the Asgore dialogue. It's not what we want. Alright, maybe I didn't put it in here, but there's one point in which you go over to Napstablook's house, and she's like, Napstablook, and she's like, he used to have his cousin, but his cousin is gone, now, and I don't know where they went. Obviously became out of town, and he's all alone. Be nice to him, okay? Like, she's constantly telling you to, like, be nice to people, and she's being really nice to people, so seems like kind of like the angriest character, actually so incredibly full of love. So Undyne's main drive is similar to Asgore's, but she's younger and less traumatized. She wants to protect everyone's hopes and dreams. She wants to free everyone. The way the world is set up, sacrifices have to be made for that, including humans. She's 100% ready to be in the Royal Guard and kill some people in order to free everybody in the underground. My other notes, they're great. An Undyne in the history room. She wants them to engrave a plaque with swords and kissing. Could she be a bigger lesbian? That's Could she be a bigger lesbian? Alright, in the wishing room, every day people come here and wish to the stars. I won't let them down. I'll make everyone's wishes come true. Then, of course, Papyrus says, I wish I had 8 legs so I could wear 4 pairs of hot pants. And Undyne says, I'll make most people's wishes come true. Her lost soul dialogue includes, all humans will die and you're our real enemy, right? And that's what you end up with in the bad neutral routes if you activate Undyne. If you don't, right? If everything's pretty positive, she'll just be like, what's up, kid? I can't, I want to see you someday too. But then if you've killed too many people or like the right people, she deposes Toriel. She makes the underground really, really warlike. She gears them up for war. She's gonna rekindle the war between monsters and humans because of you. And then, of course, her last dialogue, well, some humans are okay, I guess. Right? Kind of learning the same lesson as Papyrus. That you have to judge everybody individually. Alright. Alright, we're coming up on the end here. I hope y'all are hanging in there. Hour 2. How's everybody feeling? I know I lost a few of you. People have, like, gone to sleep and stuff. What? Time to hydrate. Time to, I can hear my voice doing that thing that my voice does when, like, there's not as much of it left. Hey, Freya's. Alright. Undyne like these almonds. Activated. Oh my god, Alicorn Bubble Tea, you're so kind. You're so kind. Like, oh my god, don't exhaust yourself. Okay. Here we go with, I would say, the most controversial and most surprisingly hated character in the game, Alphys. So I'm gonna, well, I know you're listening, Freya's, because you, like, did your thing, but I'm still messaging you. Do you like Alphys? Alphys, really openly does some stuff to you. Lies to your face. And for that reason, a lot of kids dislike her. So let's look at my notes here. Who loves Alphys? Anyone who appreciates a horny, neurodivergent nerd. And anyone who has some of the stuff that she deals with, including ADHD, social anxiety, and suicidality. So we're gonna get into some of that. Anime love eyes. So good. Alphys, of course, are bi disaster Alphys. Alphys the pansexual. Alphys, you have been up at more the same. Alright, so Alphys is ready to bone like everybody in the game. It's great. No, like half the cast. Alphys has a fat crush on half the cast. Alphys is gay as the springtime. Alphys loves Undyne. It's so great, like in the quiz, like in the MTT quiz, like you can't get it wrong, actually. Like no matter who, it's like, who does Alphys have a crush on? And like you can't get it wrong. You pick Undyne, MTT's like, see, it was obvious. You pick Asgore, and you get some information about like why she had a fat crush on Asgore. At the end of the game, Toriel shows up. She's never seen Toriel before in her life, and she's like, woo, mama. Like, she's like, Tori's like, who the hell would be interested in an old lady like me? And Alphys is like, you have no idea. Come over here. Like, oh god, she's great. She's great. Horniest character in the game, hands down. She's just ready to hook up with everybody. Oh, and in the MTT quiz, you can pick the human. You can pick the human, and like you also Alphys raises her. You can pick the human, and MTT's like, oh yeah, I'm surprised I didn't see it before. She watches you, she hangs on your every move, you know, like Alphys doesn't deny it. Of course, it's like more of a friend crush or whatever, but like, wow, Alphys has a crush on everybody. Alphys is ready to write some erotic friend fiction. Alphys has so much going on. I'm so excited to talk about Alphys. Alright, so Alphys' surface drives include crushes on other characters and wanting to be helpful and useful and being a huge nerd and being a disaster buy. Her main motivators actually are guilt, shame, fear, loneliness, self-hatred, desire to be loved, and suicidal depression. She definitely has it. So before we start talking about some other stuff, let's talk about why Alphys has ADHD. Alphys has ADHD. I will not be taking any questions at this time. But no, Alphys absolutely just, the list is long, and now I'm going to go through it. So Alphys has trouble starting, but she posts online about it constantly, right? So she needs to call you, and she can't. That's like one of the first things that happens. She needs to call you, but she can't. Oh my god. She's just so nervous about it. But she's constantly posting online like, I gotta do that. Oh, she has social anxiety, right? She doesn't believe that anybody could ever be her friend. She is easily distracted by her hyperfixations, which include Mew Mew Kissy Cutie. Everybody knows about Mew Mew Kissy Cutie because Alphys won't shut up about it, right? In this very quiz, it gets, like, a question gets brought up and she just starts going, like, immediately. She gets activated. When you are walking around, there are some more phone calls where she is talking about, I mean, like, posts online, not phone calls, sorry. You get to see all of her posts online, and she just posts and posts and posts and posts and posts about Mew Mew Kissy Cutie. And then, she will say, oh my god, I should be calling the human. Top 10 shows that make you forget to do your freaking job. Yeah, she has a little time blindness there. She just gets really, really caught up, in some shit. And she can talk a ton about the stuff that she loves. I have ADHD friends, what's up? You can make an argument, yeah, that's coming, Bato. That's coming. Thanks, though. So, yeah, easily distracted. She forgets things, right? She forgets to call you. She forgets to call you in time. She has a little bit of that time blindness. She's like, oh my god, I meant to do this. I meant to do that. I meant to turn the thing off. I thought that would work. She thinks that everybody hates her. Yes, that is the rejection sensitive dysphoria, which we'll get into that with her lost soul dialogue as well. She has suicidal depression. That absolutely comes up. She has really low self-esteem, and she is unable to ask for help, really. So I'm just gonna get into it here. At the core, Alphys does not believe anyone could like the person she is, which is where she lies to the character and sets up an elaborate scheme to get to play hero with them. What Alphys does, if you're not aware of it, so Mettaton is her robot, right? And so she asks Mettaton to go along with her in this, like, really, really complex scheme where Mettaton is supposed to be a human attacking robot. Here she is going off about Mew Mew Kissy Cutie. God, what a mood. Alright, so So she sicks Mettaton on you, and Mettaton does this like play acting thing, and Mettaton is like really, really happy to do this for more than one reason, for like their own reasons, right? But Mettaton goes along with it, even though it's just a big scheme, you know, for Alphys. Alphys has all the control. Alphys just like calls Mettaton and like calls things off or whatever. So Alphys can be the hero along with you. She doesn't believe herself to be any kind of hero, despite accepting the king's task of trying to break the barrier without human souls that sacrifices other monsters. The king doesn't check on Alphys, leaving her to blame herself entirely. So now it's time to talk about the other stuff that Alphys is dealing with. So the king comes to Alphys, the royal scientist, and says, you know, he doesn't want to kill kids. He wants a solution. So he asks her to come up with a way to break the barrier without using actual human souls, to do artificial souls. So she does this experiment. She does this experiment where Asgore actually contacts families and asks them to bring their relatives who have fallen down. So basically, their relatives are dying, and he says, you know, what a request for the king, right? The king is like, do you have a relative who's fallen down? Please bring them to the royal scientist. They say yes. You know, so a bunch of monsters go into the lab, and Alphys has determination, and she injects them with it. You know, she believes that the power of determination, it's what brings you back every time, right? It's a really incredible human power, and she believes that she's hoping it's also going to bring these monsters back. And you know, they kind of don't get into it, right? They're trying to make like an artificial being with like Flowey, but that doesn't work out. Flowey thinks that he doesn't have a soul anyway. But like with this determination, what were they gonna do? Were they gonna like harvest their souls afterwards then? It's kind of wild. Anyway, maybe they were just gonna use their like living souls to go through, like they could just walk through, like they had human level souls now. Anyway, injects these monsters with determination, which for the first few days seems kind of okay, but then their bodies can't handle it and they start to physically melt, and they all melt together. So the monsters don't quite die. But they are something new and terrifying. Alphys is horrified. She lives with she can't help them. She can't separate them. She can't do anything. They all kind of melted and fused together and like re-solidified. They cannot be separated. Now they are amalgamations. Call them the amalgamates. And she's alone. Asgore's a flake, and he doesn't come check up on her to ask her how things went. Get into like a little side complexity, the idea that she was actually not the only one who did this. There are all kinds of arguments about Sans being a scientist who was in the lab with her. We're not really sure about that. About W.D. Gaster being there, because there are some entries from Gaster. I have not really talked about Gaster, but he is an incredibly mysterious figure who has remained mysterious throughout this game and the Deltarune games. We simply have his name from the credits of the game as like an unimplemented character. There's a secret room that has a character named Mystery Man in it. Everybody has come to believe is Dr. Gaster. There's a secret value. There are just so many secrets in the game. There's a secret value that changes depending on what you do in the game that will make unique encounters happen. And there are a variety of them. Characters that will not show up in any playthrough of the game. It's called a fun value, and depending on your fun value, you can encounter any of Gaster's followers who will give you like a little bit of information about Gaster, who was a scientist who fell into his own creation. They don't specify what his own creation is. Everybody assumes it's the core. Everybody assumes that Gaster made the core, and that's what he fell into. But one of his followers tells you that he was scattered across time and space, that they have a piece of him in their hand. And there is an entry from him. He talks about these experiments. However, he is not there anymore. Nobody remembers him or talks about him. Alphys is alone. Yeah, W.D. Gaster lore analysis is something completely different. We're not going to talk about that now. But it's fascinating. Yeah, I'm like way into Gaster theory. It's so great. So Alphys, for all intents and purposes, is alone. All right, Gaster fell into his creation. Whatever. Gaster's gone. If Sans was in the lab at one time, or if he still comes and helps out, he's not hanging out, and he's tight-lipped as hell. He's not spilling Alphys' secret. Maybe she begged him not to tell. Maybe he doesn't know, but he did bring her the flippin' dog food, and there is an amalgamate that's made of a bunch of dogs. All right, so Sans kind of knows what's going on, but whatever's going on, Alphys doesn't want anybody to know. She thinks if anybody knows, they are going to hate her forever. They could not possibly ever forgive her. She feels that what she's done is unforgivable, and she takes personal responsibility for it. Again, like Asgore doesn't ask her what the hell happened. Even though he asked her to do this experiment, he doesn't ask her what happened. You go in her lab and you find this stack of letters that are unanswered. The monsters have been asking about their relatives, and she's telling nobody. She hides inside. She never goes out. She's afraid if she runs into anybody, they're gonna ask. Her existence is like super miserable, right? She's had this terrible this experiment gone wrong, like this mistake, right? I don't know why I'm spacing on like this terrible, like, I would say accident. That's not the right word, you know, but like things went horribly wrong. She shoulders all of the responsibility herself and the shame. She doesn't have any like self-confidence at all, self-esteem, self-respect. She can't like really initiate with Undyne because she does not believe at her very innermost self, she does not believe that she is lovable, that anybody could love her. So while she has all of these fat crushes, she doesn't act on any of them. She's too scared. She doesn't go out. And you find that, you know, you come in the lab and she's like, oh my god, I didn't clean up. There's big piles of everything ever. She's like, I didn't even shower, you know, like, she's depressed. Yeah, the king doesn't check on Alphys, leaving herself to blame herself entirely. Alphys feels like if she ever stops lying, she will be hated by everyone forever. And so she concocts this, like, cockamamie-ass plan that's like another big complex lie to get you to like her, because she's lonely. They're all lonely. She's really lonely, you know? She even, you know, of course, so she feels more guilt and shame because she knows what she's doing is wrong. But she can't really stop herself. She's so lonely. So this is what she does. Let's see. So, and then of course it turns out great, right? Undyne gives you like some more like evidence that Alphys has ADHD, right? Where she met her in the dump. Of course she was looking for cool swords. I saw her standing there staring into the abyss. She looked pretty contemplative, so I asked her where she thought the abyss led to, and she looked up at me shocked and went red in the face, but I'm scary, so I'm used to that kind of stuff. Then she kept explaining all her different theories. She went on for hours. I was so captivated. After that, I kept running into her here, and now we're friends. Yeehaw! And then, of course, when you do talk to... when you do see, like, the date, you know, that they do together, what Undyne ends up saying to Alphys is, what I like about you is that you're passionate, you're analytical, it doesn't matter what it is. You care about it 100% at maximum power. Hi. Alphys has, like, so much ADHD. So, yeah. And, Alphys absolutely suicidally depressed. There is more than one ending where she does not make it. Where Undyne is gone is one of them. And yeah, but it's implied. Specifically, like, the King Mettaton ending, which I'll get into. But, like, yeah, Mettaton goes looking for Alphys, and she's, like, nowhere. and Mettaton is like, I realized I should have been a better friend to her. It's implied that Alphys took herself out. So Alphys, all of these characters, almost all of these characters are like hurting in a certain way. I would say that like Papyrus is not hurting like hard, other than he has a lot of concern for his brother, right? He is worried about Sans. But the rest of the, and like Undyne has her like sense of duty, but she's not like, she doesn't have like a huge massive loss that she's struggling with, but a lot of these characters do. A lot of these characters have some sort of really, really big trauma, and for Alphys, it's this awful, like, lab experiment gone wrong that she takes personal responsibility for. Her lost soul dialogue. You hate me, don't you? I've got to keep lying. All I do is hurt people. You know, it's all laid out there. She can't believe that anybody could ever possibly like the person that she is. And then, of course, when you save her, no, that's not true. My friends like me, and I like you too. So we are just about there. That is pretty much all the characters. I'm gonna talk about Mettaton just a little bit. Shoutouts to our trans rep in the game, Mettaton. Oh, Mettaton. Oh, Mettaton. Alright, let's see. Did I have a video for Mettaton? I think I do. Yeah, I do. Alright, here we go. Here we go. Back to Mettaton. Back to Mettaton. How y'all doing? We're almost done. Bringing it home here with Mettaton. So Mettaton doesn't get, you know, like Mettaton, you don't get to know them like super well or whatever. Most of the time they're doing stuff for Alphys. The thing I love about, so yeah, so if you haven't, you have to, you know, do a little digging to find out that Mettaton is trans, that Mettaton, pardon me, was Blook's cousin, and there's this implication that everything is like very femme or whatever. They talk about not having the body that they truly want, and then of course Alphys gives it to them, right? So so they're very loyal to Alphys to a point, kind of to a point. The interesting thing about Mettaton is their like loyalty and then their like lack of loyalty. And Mettaton's surface drives are fame. That is one of their not surface drives too. And their friendship with Alphys, and their main motivator is following his dreams no matter who it hurts. So one of the things I love about Mettaton, he's kind of an asshole. He's really, again, he's another one of these like really, really complex characters. If you encounter him, you know, and he's willing to play along with Alphys's crap up to a point, and then he gets bored of it, and he just throws her under the bus. He just lets you know he's like, you know what? This was all fake. I'm bored. And I'm gonna tell you that Alphys was lying to you this whole time. Nah. Because he feels like it. You know, so, you know, like maybe there's some better like motivation there or whatever for you to like know the truth or whatever. But for the most part, like this is one of the things I love. I love that like Mettaton is like trans rep, and like Mettaton is kind of a selfish bastard, but also has his redeeming qualities. If you do the genocide run and he comes back as Mettaton Neo. The difference in Mettaton and Papyrus is Mettaton gathered fame at the expense of others, but Papyrus wants to be famous for doing good. Oh, it's interesting. Interesting. Yeah, Mettaton wants to be an idol, right? And Mettaton wants to go out on the surface to get more popularity. Like, they're both seeking popularity. But yeah, Mettaton doesn't really care who he steps on. You also learn that he promised Blook that he would never leave him alone. Like, if you go through Mettaton's diaries in his home, which is a thing that you can do, that's how you find out that Mettaton is actually a ghost in this robot body. Gets upset if you, like, mention anything about him being a ghost or whatever. So this is actually, like, a body that's being inhabited and not, like, a robot that Alphys built. Like, that's another kind of thing that she's lying about, right? Because she's just like, they're both lying about it, right? Because Mettaton doesn't want anybody to know who he was before. He's Mettaton now, so he's perfectly willing to pretend that he's a robot that Alphys built, and this is so good. And Alphys wants everybody to think that she's like cool and competent and built this robot, except she can't build another one because it's actually Mettaton, right? I mean, like it's actually a ghost in there. So he promised Bluke that he would never leave him alone. You see in Mettaton's diaries, he's like, "Don't worry, Blukey, I'm always gonna be here for you." And then he's just like, "Sorry, Blukey, you gotta follow my dreams." Yeah, like just fucks right off out of there. Alphys offers him something better. Admittedly, it's his dream, but he could have come back and visit. If you get the King Mettaton ending, Mettaton is a flippin', for lack of a better term, monster. He is terrible. Holy crap. The underground is falling into ruin. He's kind of joking about how there's like economic collapse and like no education, and he makes everybody build. I didn't even do a like, do you like Mettaton poll? Oh well, I now that I've like started talking about this, I always want to know what people think before I start talking about it. But what the hell? What the hell? We're gonna do a poll. Yeah, Mettaton just has them build a bunch of like statues and things, cut hedges in the shape of his face, that thing that Papyrus wanted. Pap and Sans end up being his bouncers or whatever. But they say that like Mettaton disappears people who don't like his show. Like in the King Mettaton ending, like if you don't like his stuff, like he's literally murdering people who don't like his show. So yeah, but again, if you do that neophyte, right? If you do the Mettaton neophyte, which is fascinating because Mettaton was never, I don't know. I mean, the Mettaton fight is like powerful enough or whatever, but like once you get to him at that point, you as a human are like ridiculously strong. And so he comes out, and if you check him, his stats are really, really high. Like as a robot, he's one of the few with like really, really high defense stats where it says his robot body protects him or whatever. But like Mettaton Neo has a lot of intent to kick your ass. His attack is like really, really high. Undyne's the only other character that ends up like that. So yeah, he's really complex. He's not like 100% a good guy, but he's not 100% a bad guy either. And for that reason, I really, really love his character. You know? He's just, yeah, he isn't any kind of leader. And that, my friends, is it. So I'm just gonna go back to like my little summary from the beginning. For whatever reason, most of the cast find themselves isolated. For the most part, they're doing it to themselves. They all need somebody to kind of bust into their lives and walk with them for a while, talk them through things, hold their hand. They all just need a little help because they're all very caught up inside their own heads. And so that's what you do. You come in and you shake things up, right? You do what Sans has been trying to do this whole time but was unable to do. You come in and you like change everybody's life. You make them, you help them out of their grief. You help them out of their trauma. You help them to move forward. And obviously very physically, right, if you end up breaking that barrier. So this has been an Undertale character analysis. Their motivations, why they made the choices that they did, some of the things that people really hate them for. I think they have really good reasons that are written into the game, and you just have to pay attention. So I hope you all had a good time. I would love to know if anybody learned anything about any of the characters, and if you already knew it and you just came and you were like really, really hyped, that's cool too. My name is SporadicErratic. You can find me on Twitter retweeting Undertale fan art all day long. This is not an exaggeration. I have ADHD. I'm absolutely hyperfixated on this game. I have a lot of other thoughts about it. I'm really, really interested in all the little Easter eggs and little hidden things. But I had a really good time talking to you about all of these characters. Thank you so much for all the thank yous in the chat. I want to thank again Encrypted Duck for allowing me to use all of their footage. Please go check out their full playthrough of the Pacifist run on YouTube. If you want to just watch that, that's a PB for me talking about Undertale. It is, because the last couple of times it took 2 hours and 45 minutes. We're at 2 hours and 30 minutes. I PB'd, y'all. Oh, man. You know why? I'm pretty sure it's because these are actually my before brain hours. In case you're wondering, I'm a night owl, and this is early for me, and so this is when my brain is not activated. Please imagine what it's like when my brain is activated. This is me doing my best in, like, not my best hours. So... There's a timer on. There was a timer. I didn't even notice the timer. I love you. I love you, Franz. I love you, Edge Case Collective. Huge thanks. Again, I want to shout out Bato66Y in the chat, without whom there's no way in hell I could have done this talk the way that I did. He worked extremely hard compiling all of this footage for me. I cannot really express how grateful I am. Thank you so much, Bato, for the footage. Too bad I was such a dork in the beginning and I didn't switch it early enough. All right. Should I go check out, like, I think I have, like, Asgore's, like, or Asriel's, like, end of game dialogue or whatever, like the last things that he leaves you with. I love the way that they just keep breaking the fourth wall with this, like, all the time. You're here to enable my shenanigans. Thank you for enabling my shenanigans. All right. So Asriel, gosh, Asriel, what a kick in the face to, like, the players who've been trying hard to save everybody the whole time, right? That you can't save Asriel, that he just refuses. I think that's actually an important lesson too from the game, where Asriel talks to you and he says, you can't always help everybody by being kind and compassionate all the time, despite the fact the game is designed to teach you to be kind and compassionate. And then he says, then he refuses to be saved. He says somebody has to take care of these flowers. He kind of teaches you a lesson where you can try your absolute hardest, and people have to come along because they want to. You can't make them, right? And Asriel's not ready, despite everything, in the end. Which, you know, has nothing to do with character motivations. It's just one of life lessons. Yeah, he can't forgive himself, you know, whereas you've kind of taught Alphys to, like, forgive herself, and, like, in the end, like, when you help her, she's like, no, I'm gonna tell the truth from now on, I'm gonna sit on ass and watch anime, and her friends are like, hell yeah. Yeah, he says, and he truly believes that when he turns back into a flower that he's not gonna feel anything anymore, which is really sad because he was always feeling things as a flower. I'll stop being able to feel love. It's best if you forget about me. Go be with the people who love you. Oh, this dialogue dump is a mess. I won't try to read it. I won't try to read it anymore. Yeah, giving your all the time will lead to burnout. Thank you, Asriel. All right, so that is the end of my presentation, and I would like to ask the Edge Case Collective staff if they were wanting to, like, hop in. Also, vote really quick in the chat, just with your words, which video do you want me to switch this to? For, like, the final one. Raid suggestions. Oh, let me look at my stuff.
Yeah, thank you for this amazing presentation. We definitely learned a lot.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Alright, I saw a request for Sans. There he is. Alright, does anybody have a suggestion of somebody to raid? Is anybody playing Undertale right now? That would be, like, amazing.
Oh, that would be amazing.
We should just like search. Hold on. Hold on. Let's do a search. um.
Yeah, it looks like there's a bunch of people playing Undertale.
Yeah. There's always a bunch of people playing Undertale. That's something that I love. This game is like 7 years old. There's still people playing it for the first time. I didn't even play it. You know, it's been. Oh wait, that's the. Did you find one that you like?
No, we haven't bothered to search more. Our brain is kind of dead.
Yeah, it's definitely it's that time, right? This is the least um like mentally boomed I've been after giving this talk. Does anybody let's see. Oh, let's see. I love the name of the. Oh, that was 11 hours ago. Sorry, this was Metaton Te Amamos. Ooh, maybe de. All right, we have somebody. Sans is sleeping. It's is this their second run? Reproductive rights and privacy. Pride. This person seems cool. We could raid them. We could raid my
Awesome, that sounds good.
yeah. Sans is sleeping is Are they just like hanging out or like Sans sleeping? I guess this is probably a genocide run though.
It's a 36-hour long stream so far.
Of Sans sleeping and them just sitting there?
Yeah, looks like it.
Feels like it's in the spirit of this event. Like a lot.
Honestly, we are down at this point.
There any other Edge Case collective staff who wanted to like hop in and say anything?
No, we don't think anybody else is awake.
Nice. Excellent.
So we're just gonna give a super quick outro. This has been Fuzzy Logic 2 by the Edge Case Collective. Thank you everybody so much for watching, and we hope that all of you enjoyed this as much as we did. These are always a lot of fun, and yeah, thank you for watching. Let's raid Sansa sleeping.
I'm so into it. I'm so into
Good night.
it. Good night, everyone.
This target channel only allows in-network raids. Fine, we're just gonna.
Who are you gonna raid? Okay, why don't we raid my friend Sakyo?
Okay.
This is gonna be great. Sakyo _ Sonen. I'm gonna type it in the chat. I can't do the raid. Ooh, why? Caps lock? Yeah. Let's go raid Sakyo.
This target channel only allows in-network raids.
Oh, for reals? Okay.
Heck it, we're gonna throw them a host. And call it a day.
Okay.